Hi guys, it's me, Shazza HD, and welcome to race day for the 2023 Austrian Grand Prix weekend. The main event, of course, of the weekend being the Sunday race, and it's been a pretty exciting weekend. Obviously, qualifying on Friday was very topsy-turvy. We had plenty of surprises, quite a mixed-up order it was as well, and of course, that session on Friday did decide the starting grid for today's race. Of course, we'll get into that soon enough. But yeah, the sprint race yesterday, obviously, you guys know I'm not massive, a massive fan of the sprint format and all of that. But the sprint race yesterday was pretty exciting, really because of the first half of the sprint being wet and the second half being dry. That's really what made it an exciting race there. But yeah, we've had a pretty exciting weekend so far, and let's hope it is capped off by an exciting race. Looking at the grid, which we'll get into soon, it should be definitely an intriguing race and a decent race at the very least, because, with so many cars out of position on the grid, in my view, out of position, we should get plenty of overtaking. Of course, this track is one of the easiest for overtaking. 3 DRS zones as well, so it should be, should be a pretty interesting race today, which gets underway in just under 2 hours from now. Hope you guys, by the way, are doing well, no matter what time zone you're in or what part of the world you're from, or whatever circumstances you may be going through. Hope you're all having the best day possible, and you'll join me today in enjoying watching along the 2023 Austrian Grand Prix. And obviously, first to start with, we'll be getting into the build-up to the race and going through the key data before we get to the race itself. We'll get into the results of qualifying, which of course decided the grid on Friday for this race today here on Sunday. We'll then get into the sector time data from qualifying, the speed trap data as well, just to look at who has very strong straight line speed this weekend and who more so doesn't. One thing, unfortunately, we won't be getting into, though, is long run data from practice, because obviously with it being a sprint weekend, and also the sprint race yesterday was, half wet, half dry. We even had a few drivers, do the entire sprint race on the intermediate tyre. We haven't had enough representative running in dry conditions. And the race today in Austria, by the looks of it, is going to be pretty dry. Yeah, we just haven't had enough representative running in dry conditions on heavier fuel to determine what the race pace is going to look like from all of the teams. So, unfortunately, I won't be able to get into that. But of course, I will give you guys my final prediction before we get into the race itself. And of course, we'll get, in depth into the teams and drivers and what the keys are for those teams and drivers to get the desired results today. But, yeah, I think I'll just get straight into it. And actually, before we get into the qualifying results, let me start with the championship standings. Because, of course, the sprint race yesterday, there were points on the board. 8 points for first, 7 for second, 6 for third, 5 points for fourth, and then, so on and so forth, all the way down to 8th place, where there was only 1 point for 8th. So I just want to show you the slight differences now to the championship standings. The Max Verstappen is now 70 points clear of Sergio Perez. Perez now 12 clear of Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. Carlos Sainz, a few more points clear of George Russell in 5th. Lance Stroll in 8th is a bit closer now to Charles Leclerc, only 12 points behind. And then Ocon a couple points better off. So in terms of the driver's side, in the top 10, the order remains the same. The only mover in the Drivers' Championship after the sprint race yesterday was Nico Hülkenberg, who has gone back up to 12th place, ahead of Alex Albon, because, of course, Hülkenberg scored 3 vital points for the Haas team yesterday. So here is the constructor side. Red Bull, obviously, massively clear of Mercedes. Aston Martin third. But now, because Aston Martin scored 9 points in the sprint race and Mercedes only scored 1, Aston Martin are only 5 points behind going into today's race. So if they can, with both drivers, say finish at least 5th and 6th, then they might be able to close the gap even more, if not overtake the Mercedes team at the conclusion of today's race. Ferrari are a bit closer to Mercedes in second. They're now only 40 points behind the Mercedes team. Alpine are a couple points better off. And yeah, Haas F1, who were coming into the weekend in 8th and a point behind Alfa Romeo, are now up to 7th and 2 points clear of the Alfa Romeo team and only 6 points behind McLaren. But given the improvements McLaren have made to their car, I don't think Haas are going to be really that close to McLaren for that much longer. But yeah, Haas up to 7th now. We'll see if they can keep that. But let's now get into the results of qualifying and look at what your starting grid is for today's Austrian Grand Prix. So on Friday, Max Verstappen took pole position with a 1 minute 4.391, and it was only half a tenth quicker than Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari. Ferrari definitely in qualifying had the speed to get pole position. I'm led to believe, I haven't seen Leclerc's the lap he did in Q3, but I am led to believe that he may have made a mistake in that final sector, a small one that could have cost him that amount of time, if not more, to get pole position. So yeah, Ferrari definitely in qualifying had the pace to end up on pole, but in the end, Verstappen and Red Bull were consistent enough to just about get it. Carlos Sainz will start, of course, in third, so a great starting position for Ferrari. It's actually their best qualifying result of the season so far, second and third. The last time they were second and third or better on the grid as a team, you'd have to go back to probably this time last year, even, in terms of like as a team with both drivers, you know, the best result they had coming out of a qualifying session. So very good for the Ferrari team. Not necessarily delivering fully on the pace that they had on Friday, but more so delivering on it than, you know, what we've seen in other weekends. Lando Norris will start in fourth for McLaren. Norris was not only, you know, out-qualifying Lewis Hamilton, Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, but he was around such a short lap, miles ahead of those drivers. He was nearly 0.2 of a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton and 1/4 of a second quicker than the two Aston Martins. So Lando, obviously, we know at the Red Bull Ring, always super quick, but I do believe genuinely the McLaren car is much quicker than it was before. Again, we do have to take into account, you know, the Lando tax, I guess you could call it, here at the Red Bull Ring, where he just seems to be unbelievably quick for some unknown reason. I mean, obviously the reason is because he just, you know, he likes the way the track, I guess, interacts with his driving style and just likes it quite a lot. And of course, you know, the drivers do get plenty of experience racing around here, whether it's in Formula One, junior formula, all of that stuff. So yeah, it's not really it's not like the Red Bull Ring's not a circuit that, you know, we don't race at very often. Gets plenty of action, does this circuit. But yeah, I still believe genuinely that McLaren have improved massively. And I do think that they are definitely much better now than teams like Haas and Alpine. I mean, we saw that to a degree in the sprint race yesterday, where Lando Norris, I mean, he didn't beat Ocon in the sprint yesterday, but he was looking definitely, before people started to pit for dry tyres, he did look a lot quicker than the Alpine. So yeah, the McLaren, much better looking than it was, obviously, a couple of weeks ago in Canada and before in 2023. And that is really great to see. And there are still big upgrades to come for McLaren. We believe they've got another big upgrade coming for the Hungarian Grand Prix, which is in 3 weeks from now. And maybe a bit of an extra upgrade will come at Silverstone, which of course is their home race next weekend. So we'll see what happens with that. And of course, Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris's teammate, will get the new upgrade package as well at Silverstone that Lando is running this weekend. And then, yeah, Lewis Hamilton in P5. I mean, really, in terms of position, I don't think Lewis really could have done any better. But in terms of how far he was off Max Verstappen, yeah, definitely a bit excessive. And I really think Mercedes should have been closer than what they showed on Friday. But still, position-wise, it was, really the best he could have done. Lance Stroll, great qualifying, out-qualifying Fernando for the second time in the last 3 races. Good to see. Just ahead of Fernando Alonso in P7. Aston Martin, even though they finished 4th and 5th yesterday, when you look at their pace in comparison to the other front-running teams, and even, McLaren so far this weekend, Aston Martin just don't seem really that quick at all. In qualifying, I'd probably say they were the 5th best team, to be honest. In race trim, they're probably going to be 4th best team at the absolute best, I would say. But yeah, this is just a weak track really for them when it comes to pure pace. But still, 6th and 7th, despite this track not being, the best suited circuit, is still a great result to have and a really good position to have for the race, despite their weakness. Nico Hülkenberg qualifies in 8th place and will start obviously in 8th. Brilliant weekend he's had. Obviously qualified 4th for the sprint race, was running 2nd in the sprint race and then pitted for dry tyres and ended up finishing eventually in 6th place. And if there was one more lap, Hülkenberg would have finished in 4th where he was before he pitted for a set of medium compound tyres. But yeah, most likely, because of the inability of the Haas to look after its tyres, he's probably going to drop down the field, unfortunately. But Hülkenberg has been stunningly quick in 2023. There is zero doubt about that. Pierre Gasly 9th. Alpine, they are really just back to being a midfield team. They have been pretty slow all weekend compared to Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston Martin, and clearly McLaren, because Lando Norris, as you can see, was half a second quicker in the McLaren compared to the Alpine. So yeah, Alpine are just nowhere near where they were a month ago when they looked like they were properly fighting teams like Mercedes and Aston Martin to a degree. Williams, they complete the top 10, and Alex Albon will start in the top 10 for the second race in a row. Of course, in Canada 2 weeks ago, he did finish in 7th place after doing a one-stop strategy. Would be incredible if he could do that again here, but if he was to do a one-stop strategy today, it would be a lot harder for him to make it work, because it is a lot easier to overtake here if you are on fresher tyres and, you do more pit stops. So, yeah, going to be interesting to see how Albon gets on. It's going to be very hard for him to finish in the points, but if he can finish in the top 10, then even if it's just P10, that would be a really great result. But that is your top 10 for the race. And then the rest of the field is George Russell in 11th place. Very poor qualifying from him, and really has had, a poor last few races, has Russell, and is, at the minute, definitely not Mr. Saturday. Esteban Ocon in P12. I was a bit disappointed with Ocon and his pace on Friday, but to be honest, I think it's a lot more down to Alpine just being slow than Ocon being, bad or anything. And if you look at how Gasly and Ocon historically have got on around this track, Gasly probably is the better driver for the Red Bull ring, at least when it comes to, say, qualifying laps. So, yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world for Esteban Ocon. Oscar Piastri in 13th, obviously running the old McLaren car. He was very good in the sprint race yesterday once the dry tyres were put on, and I think he ended up with the fastest lap of the sprint. So well done to him. And he finished in 11th place ahead of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Yeah, 13th on the grid. I mean, even in the old McLaren car, that's a very good starting position. And I mean, if there's, if Alpine really struggle, if Albon, really has a struggle as well, then I definitely think a point is possible for Piastri. Most likely he won't get it because that old McLaren package that he's running is just too, slow, especially down the straights compared to the new McLaren car, which does seem to be just a bit less draggy than the old one and just has a lot more downforce in general. So yeah, we'll see how Piastri does. Valtteri Bottas, 14th for Alfa Romeo. Alfa Romeo, one of the slowest teams this weekend. And then Sergio Perez, 15th. The reason I put NA for his lap time is because the lap time he did was like a minute and 10 seconds nearly. Was it a minute and 10 seconds? No, it was a minute and 2 seconds rather. Yeah, 1 minute and 2 seconds off the pace. So it wasn't like a proper lap or anything. So that's why I decided not to put it on the screen. And then the bottom 5 for the grid today, Yuki Tsunoda in 16th, Zhou Guanyu in 17th, Logan Sargent 18th. Sargent still very disappointed I am in the weekend he's had. He's just not been anywhere near good enough in my opinion. Kevin Magnussen 19th and Nick De Vries will start last of all the 2023 Austrian Grand Prix. And as of now, there are no grid penalties for today's race. I won't be able to check Twitter today in terms of like posts on Twitter to see if there has been any breaking news or if there's, newly announced grid penalties or anything like that because of what's happened to Twitter with now most people being rate limited and not being able to view any real posts on Twitter for like a 24-hour period, it seems, because on my Twitter, I just can't view anything really. So, yeah, not great on that front. But, yeah, that is your starting grid for the Austrian Grand Prix. Let's now get into the sector time data to just look at where certain teams are quick this weekend to determine, who has good downforce in the high-speed corners, who has good straight line speed, all of that stuff. So in the first sector, really it is about straight line speed. There's only one real corner in the first sector. Because obviously that corner is right in the middle of two DRS zones. Red Bull and Ferrari pretty much level on pace through that first sector. Also, I've got to say, very impressive. I think I said this earlier in the weekend. Mercedes have clearly, with this new side pod and floor design they've put on the car since Monaco, which is a lot more like the Red Bull and Aston Martin, the Mercedes, I have noticed, has really improved with its straight line speed, and it is a lot less draggy now than what we've seen before. So very impressive for the Mercedes to be pretty much on the same pace as the Red Bull and Ferrari in such a high-speed sector, and quicker, actually, than the Williams by 0.03 of a second. Also, clear evidence with the McLaren, the newly updated McLaren, that they have eliminated some of the drag. Not all of it. It's still, they're still not, say, one of the quickest teams in a straight line. They're not even one of the top 5 quickest teams in a straight line. But they are a lot better now in that area. They're not, before this weekend with the new upgrade, and a lot of times this season and even a lot of times last season, you guys will remember, McLaren were not only the slowest in the speed trap, they would be slowest by miles compared to everybody else. I remember, was it Saudi Arabia earlier this year? Piastri qualified in 9th place and had a top speed almost 20 kilometers an hour slower than the Red Bull. And thankfully, that is now a lot better for McLaren. So yeah, looking good for McLaren. Pretty much, they are smack bang in the middle in the first sector. Lance Stroll in 6th for Aston Martin. Not really a surprise Aston Martin, not quick at all in the first sector because their car does seem to just be a bit draggier in a straight line compared to the Mercedes works car, despite, of course, having the same power unit. The Haas, I have to say, of Nico Hülkenberg, not very quick in the first sector. I would have expected them to be maybe 3 or 4 hundredths quicker, given they are Ferrari powered. And as you'll see with the speed trap data soon, they do have one of the best top speeds for any team. And it is weird when, we go through the sectors, you'll see Haas very inconsistent with their pace really through all sectors. And it's really hard to understand why they ended up qualifying in 8th place with where they were in all of the sectors. Alpine, I have to say, a bit disappointing for them to be, a 10th off in the first sector, given how short of a sector it is and how simple it is. I would have expected them to be, a few hundredths of a second quicker, to be honest. But the first sector, to be honest, doesn't really matter that much. It is the least important sector by far here at the Red Bull Ring. The two slowest teams, though, by far, Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri. And, not quite sure how AlphaTauri were losing 0.3 of a second to Red Bull in just the first sector. That is alarmingly bad. In, again, such a simple and quick sector. Now let's get into the middle sector, which is, if you're going to, if you're going to talk about what is the most important sector here at the Red Bull Ring, it would be the middle sector because it is the longest. And in this sector, impressively, Ferrari were the best team by 0.5 over Red Bull. And you may remember going into the qualifying watch-along, or during the qualifying watch-along and in the build-up to qualifying I was doing, after the practice 1 session we had, I went through the sector 2 times by team from practice 1, and we saw that Red Bull were quite a bit faster in the middle sector compared to Ferrari, and I said Ferrari probably need to add a bit more wing and just to have a bit more downforce on their car to make themselves competitive enough in the middle and final sector, because that's really where they were losing the time for Red Bull in first practice. But clearly, they did something to the car to make it properly quick in this middle sector. And up until this point of the lap, I think Verstappen and Leclerc were pretty much equal with their lap times. Maybe Charles Leclerc was very slightly quicker up until the beginning of the final sector. Just shows you how close it was in Q3 on Friday afternoon. Impressively, though, McLaren, 3rd quickest, not just 3rd quickest, but comfortably quicker than Aston Martin by 0.1 of a second, and a 0.5 quicker than Mercedes. That is very impressive. Again, we do have to account for Lando's incredible speed at the Red Bull Ring, but I think McLaren, without a doubt, from an aerodynamic perspective, have made massive improvements and are now, at least in qualifying trim. Of course, in the race, we'll find out genuinely what their race pace is now like with this new, massively updated car. New side pod design, radical new side pod design, new floor, all of that. We'll find out again what their race pace is like. But at least in qualifying trim, through the corners, their car is very much comparable and on the same level as Aston Martin and Mercedes. But whether they can keep that up in race trim, again, we will find out. But very good middle sector from the McLaren team. And they were pretty much the 3rd best team in qualifying on Friday. Aston Martin, I would say, doing even though they're 1/4 of a second really away from Ferrari in the middle sector, given the nature of the middle sector, I think really that's what it should be, the gap between those two teams in that sector. So I can't really blame Aston Martin too much for the speed they were doing. Very impressive speed, though, from Haas. So, not that quick in the first sector, but then in the middle sector, looking very quick indeed and splitting the Aston Martin and Mercedes teams. With Mercedes, though, they were definitely disappointing in the middle sector on Friday because their car normally in high-speed corners is better suited to, those type of corners than, say, the Aston Martin is. So for them to be half a tenth slower than them and a tenth and a half slower than McLaren is definitely not good enough from what we saw in qualifying. They really should have been Mercedes at least a tenth and a half quicker in the middle sector. Not necessarily did they have to be absolutely quicker than McLaren in the middle sector, but they should have definitely been ahead of Haas and Aston Martin. So yeah, that's really where Mercedes, I think, even though the position where Lewis Hamilton finished, I think he still would have finished there, even if he had been, a tenth and a half quicker in the middle sector, still would have ended up, like I said, in P5. The amount of lap time he lost in the end to Max Verstappen, again, just a bit too excessive compared to what it should be around this circuit. Alpine, 7th best team, and a quarter of a second pretty much behind McLaren. I know McLaren have made their improvements, but also for them, not good enough. And, also they were a tenth of a second slower than Haas, which is, definitely not good enough. So Alpine really missing out on a tenth of a second or so that really they should have been able to find with their car. And then the final three teams, Alfa Romeo, Williams and AlphaTauri. Not necessarily a surprise, but Williams are one of the slowest teams because obviously in the middle sector there's a lot more corners. But yeah, in terms of Williams being able to fight with Alpine in the race today, this is really the part of the track where they're missing out the most, because you can see between Williams and Alpine, there's clearly a 0.2 of a second gap. And if that, presents itself in the race as well, that type of gap, then I just don't see how, even though Gasly is only starting one position ahead of Albon, I just don't see how the Williams will be able to keep up. But we'll see if I'm proven wrong in the race. And then the final sector, which is really all about high-speed corner performance. Of course, the middle sector is, half of it is about straight line speed, half of it is about, your performance through high-speed corners. The final sector purely about the high-speed corners, and Red Bull half a tenth quicker than Ferrari in this final sector. And this final sector is what decided the fight for pole position, because, Charles Leclerc was slightly quicker than Verstappen after the first two sectors, but then Max was able to go 0.058 of a second quicker than Leclerc in this final sector. And of course, they ended up only 0.048 of a second apart in Max Verstappen's favour. So that's what decided it in the end. But they are pretty much equal through this final sector, are the Red Bull and Ferrari team. So I can't really sit here and say Red Bull are definitely quicker than Ferrari, because, the difference is, barely anything, to be honest. McLaren, once again, third best team. Very good speed, only a tenth and a half off Red Bull in, through those high-speed corners. That is very impressive of a improvement by the McLaren team. Just ahead of Mercedes and Aston Martin. And then Alpine, not too far behind as well. Williams, very impressive final sector for them to be quicker than Alfa Romeo, Haas and AlphaTauri by a decent amount in what is quite a short sector. The only team that really I felt didn't quite do enough in this final sector was Haas, because in the middle sector, Haas were, very quick, but then for some reason in the final sector just lost all pace. I don't quite understand why. They should have been definitely quicker than Alfa Romeo and Williams in this sector. So, really, I would say a tenth, maybe a tenth and a half at most is how much they should have improved by in this final sector. And maybe that would have put them, let me just look back, would it have put them in 7th place? Yeah, probably not, but would have put them very close to the two Aston Martins. But, in terms of the teams that were disappointing with their pace, in certain sectors. Yeah, Mercedes in Sector 2, Haas in Sector 3, Alpine in Sector 2 as well, disappointing. I mean, with Aston Martin, even though their pace hasn't been that strong, if you look at all the sector times, there's not a sector that I've seen where you can clearly see that, they're losing just way too much time in a particular part of the lap. They're pretty consistent throughout the entire lap. So, yeah, Aston Martin, I don't think have really that big of a problem with their car. Again, this track just doesn't suit their car very much. Their car much better suited to slower speed corners and just a lot more corners in general. But, yeah, in terms of qualifying and the pecking order for qualifying, let's just go back to the results of the top 10. Yeah, the pecking order in qualifying, I would say, was Red Bull, and then Ferrari. To be honest, I'd say Red Bull and Ferrari really just level on pace. I think it is hard really to say who was quicker, because I'm not sure Leclerc got the absolute best out of his lap. So yeah, Red Bull and Ferrari, definitely the two best teams. McLaren, third best. Mercedes, fourth. Aston Martin, fifth. And then Haas in sixth. This is in terms of qualifying, not race pace. Yeah, Haas in sixth. Alpine, seventh. Williams, eighth. And then Alfa Romeo, ninth. AlphaTauri, 10th. That's what the pecking order was in qualifying. Of course, for the race, that will, to a degree, change around, but not massively. Only certain teams really drop off on a race day. Ferrari, obviously, they've had that before. Haas still have that issue. Who else have that issue? Williams sometimes, but sometimes they're quick. So we'll have to see really today how they get on with that. But yeah, that's how it looked in terms of the order in Friday qualifying. But when it comes to this circuit, of course, straight line speed is very important. It is a power track, and the speed trap data gives us a good indication for today's race who to look out for when it comes to overtaking and just general straight line speed. So Williams, no surprise, the quickest team, 322 kilometers per hour, and almost 2 kilometers an hour quicker than the Red Bull and Ferrari team. So Williams looking great in that area. Red Bull and Ferrari, you can see, so closely matched that they are level with their top speed in qualifying. This speed trap data, by the way, was taken from the speed trap located right before the entry to turn 3, which is at the end of the second DRS zone. So that's the highest speed part of the track. And then the Haas looking very good, and the Alfa Romeo as well. So Ferrari-powered teams looking great. Mercedes, though, you can see, again, looking a lot better with their straight line speed. Only 4 kilometers an hour slower than Red Bull and Ferrari. When if you compare that to, when we were racing in Bahrain and Jeddah at the start of the season, it was more like double that in terms of the gap between Red Bull and Mercedes in terms of kilometers per hour. So Mercedes definitely have improved their straight line speed quite a bit, just ahead of Alpine. And McLaren, you can see, pretty much level with their straight line speed this weekend with Alpine, which we have not seen for a very long time. In the last year and a half, normally Alpine have been a few kilometers an hour quicker than McLaren in a straight line. But this weekend, they're level, and that shows clear improvement from the McLaren in its, cutting the excessive drag it had on the car, which was really the biggest weakness the McLaren team had with their car last year and to start this year as well. Aston Martin pretty much on the same type of straight line speed as well, but the 9th best team only. And then quite clearly, the slowest team in a straight line, unusually, is AlphaTauri. A power unit, now, in terms of what it's, the grunt it's giving them, is absolutely fine. They've just got a car design that is very draggy because obviously the Red Bull team running the same power unit are 6 kilometers an hour quicker in a straight line, which is, yeah, quite bad. So that really does explain why AlphaTauri not only are the slowest team, but what is the difference between them and Alfa Romeo is simply Alfa Romeo have a bit better straight line speed. But we'll see whether AlphaTauri can combat that in the race today. I mean, Tsunoda is starting in 16th place, so maybe he can do something. Progress up the field, do something like that. We'll have to see, but most likely the Alfa Romeos and AlphaTauris will miss out on the points. And talking of who will finish in the points today, let me get into my final top 10 race prediction for today's Austrian Grand Prix. Make sure to let me know, guys, in the live chat what your prediction is for the top 5 or top 10. Or, make sure to let me know in the live chat what your thoughts are in regards to the poll I've set up, where I've asked you guys, what are the chances of Ferrari winning the 2023 Austrian Grand Prix today? And the options I've put are 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%. So what percentage likelihood do you think there is for Ferrari to, pull off the win today? Remember, their last win was not exactly a year ago, but was pretty much a year ago at the same track. So, yeah, it would be a massive thing for Ferrari to end that drought. But in my view, they will not end the drought today. So this is my predicted top 10 for the race. Max Verstappen, I think, will win the race by 8 seconds. The reason I believe he'll win is because of 2 reasons. One, Red Bull won't be massively quicker in the race compared to Ferrari today, but they will be just quick enough to pull away bit by bit, a tenth here, a tenth there. And that will really help Verstappen during the race today. And as well, Max Verstappen is just too quick around this racetrack, especially this weekend. We saw in the sprint race yesterday, he obliterated everyone in only, 24 laps. Maybe that'll happen again, but I think he'll be a lot closer today. But yeah, 8 seconds I think the gap will be between Verstappen and Leclerc by the end. Ferrari will have good race pace, but it just won't be good enough for them to win. I think really the key for Leclerc and Ferrari is to get ahead of Max on the first lap and then try and settle into a good pattern and just make sure, that they can stay ahead of Max, because if they allow Max to keep the lead and build, over a second lead after a couple laps or so, I could see Max, really building a good, comfortable cushion, really, for the rest of the race. So yeah, I think Leclerc will finish in second. Carlos Sainz will be not too far behind in third. Lewis Hamilton, I think, will finish in fourth, because I do think the Mercedes car will be quicker than the McLaren in the race today. But Hamilton in that Mercedes just won't be quick enough to fight with Ferrari, because I just believe Ferrari have a better car for this track this weekend, in all terms, really. Lando Norris, though, will finish, in my view, in fifth. I do think the McLaren car will have good enough race pace to hold off the 2 Aston Martins. I still don't think Aston Martin have a good enough pace to really be fighting for, fourth place or even a podium position. I just don't believe they have the pace there. And because Lando is obviously looking very quick this weekend around what is his favourite track, and McLaren have made massive improvements, I think Lando will just about hold on ahead of the 2 Aston Martins. And that would be massive if Lando finished in fifth. That would be a massive 10 points and put them, 20 points behind Alpine, I think, which is definitely catchable in the next, 3-4 weeks, as we obviously fly up towards the end of the first half of the season. So yeah, Lando Norris, I think, will finish in fifth, just ahead of Fernando Alonso in sixth, who will eventually get his way past his teammate Lance Stroll. I do think Fernando will be quicker in race trim today. We know Fernando's not the best when it comes to qualifying. And Lance Stroll will barely hang on for 7th place ahead of the Mercedes of George Russell, who will make progress, of course, from 11th, but won't make enough progress to get really that good of a result. Sergio Perez, I'm going to go in 9th. The reason I'm not going with him any higher is because I don't think still he has enough confidence and speed combined really to, finish in the top 5 today. I just don't believe he's quite there yet. Even though yesterday he finished in 2nd, he was, miles behind Max. He was a second a lap slower than Max in the sprint and was barely, ahead of Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. So, yeah, I still don't think Perez's pace is really that good at all. And I think he will have a bit of a struggle today. Of course, remember, Perez is starting from 15th. He won't be too far behind that battle with Stroll and Russell, but yeah, 9th is where I think he'll finish. And in P10, rounding out the points, will be Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, who will be a lap down, I reckon, by the end, just about. So yeah, that's my top 10 race prediction, guys. Let me know whether you agree or disagree. Who do you think will win today's Austrian Grand Prix? Will it be Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz even, or, Lando Norris possibly? Just let me know in the chat. Who do you think is going to win the race today? Just a quick update, though, in terms of what's coming up after this weekend and today's race. My next 2 pieces of content on the channel are as follows. Next time I'll be live after today will be on Thursday, live at 8 PM UK time for the British Grand Prix weekend preview. And then the following day on Friday, next Friday, of course, or this Friday coming, whatever you want to call it, I'll be doing the British Grand Prix qualifying preview live again at 8 PM, where I'll be covering really the data from practice 2 and looking at, what the pace is looking like so far on the weekend, going through upgrades for the teams, calculating, obviously, the differences those will make probably for certain teams and for certain drivers' performances. And then, of course, we'll have, the qualifying watch-along day and the race watch-along day as well, and a Monday stream as well. So plenty of content coming your way on the channel. So if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because we do qualifying and race watch-alongs for every Grand Prix in 2023. And for everyone watching right now, don't forget to smash that like button. We're only on, 18 likes? Let's try and get up to, 30 plus likes if we can in the next, 10 minutes or so. I just want to, just want to get back on screen the timer. There you go. We have an hour and 17 minutes to go until the race starts in Austria. I will just try to load my Twitter again and see if any tweets will actually show for me. And, a miracle. I do have tweets showing, thankfully. I have seen some breaking news. Nick De Vries will be starting from the pit lane due to a setup change, I believe. Change of rear wing, beam wing spec, plus suspension setup. And apparently the same as expected for Kevin Magnussen. But those two were starting on the back row of the grid anyway, so it doesn't change the positions on the grid for Magnussen and De Vries in 19th and 20th position. But yeah, obviously we've gone through all the data. It's now time to get into the teams more in detail and look at just how they will get on today. And I'll get into more detail as to why I think they'll end up the results that I've gone for. One thing I do want to test out though quickly, as long as Twitter will play ball with me, is I want to try and see if I can find if I can get to Pirelli's Twitter account. Yes, here we go. I was worried the tweets weren't going to show. So I just wanted to quickly read out, guys, the predicted fastest race strategy by Pirelli. So according to Pirelli, the fastest race strategy today is a 2-stop race. And actually, they say the fastest projected strategy for the Austrian Grand Prix is 2 stops in 2 variants. So you could do 2 different types of a 2-stop strategy. The one option is to pit from... hold on, let me rephrase that. One option is to start on the medium compound and pit between lap 18 to 24, then go on to the hard compound tyre, and then pit again between lap 44 and 50, and then finish up on the medium compound tyre. The other option is to pit between lap 15 and 21, so that'd be an earlier pit stop. Then pit and, the first pit stop, pit for the hard compound tyre to go until either lap or you then pit again for the second time between lap 40 and lap 46. And then instead of putting on another set of mediums, they say the other option is you could put on another set of hard compound tyres. So the 2-stop strategy is the best way to go. And going into the race, that was my general thought anyway, because there's 2 reasons why a 2-stop works this weekend. One, the tyres that Pirelli have brought this weekend are the 3 softest compounds they have. And secondly, because it is very easy to overtake here compared to most tracks, the biggest obstacle for doing, an extra pit stop compared to other teams of being held up by traffic because you are unable to overtake, that obstacle is pretty much removed around this circuit, again, because of how easy it is to overtake. So it should be at least a 2-stop race for everyone. We may even see, if we get like a safety car or a virtual safety car at the right time for certain people, we might even see a 3-stop race today. Definitely is a possibility. But let me also go through the tyre sets for the drivers, just to let you guys know who has an extra set of whatever compound. So, in terms of the soft compound tyre, the only drivers that have a new set of soft tyres are George Russell and Zhou Guanyu. So we'll try and remember that for if there's a late safety car, like there was in the F2 race earlier today, which was a thrilling end, I have to say, to the Formula 2 race, which was won, if you're wondering, by Richard Verschoor. Frederick Vesti finished in 3rd, so Vesti is now, I think, 20 points clear in the F2 Championship. So yeah, Russell and Zhou have a new set of soft tyres. Everyone has, I think, except for Hulkenberg, actually, plenty of new sets of mediums. Hulkenberg has no new sets of mediums. He only has 2 used sets. I think one of those used sets of tyres, though, have only done like a couple laps, so it's not, a major difference. And everybody has 2 new sets of hard tyres, except for the 2 Red Bulls, 2 Ferraris, and the 2 Mercedes drivers. So when it comes to that strategy that Pirelli said of, starting on the medium and then pitting for 2 sets of hard tyres for a 2-stop strategy, Red Bull and Ferrari and Mercedes cannot do that because they only have 1 new set of hard tyres, no used set of hard tyres. So both Red Bull, Ferrari, or not both, but Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes will have to use either, it'd have to be 2 sets of medium tyres they'll have to use in the race today, and then 1 set of hard compound tyres at some point during the race. No idea when it will be. Probably the middle stint, most likely, for those 3 teams. Yeah, for everybody else, if the hard tyre does prove to be a much better tyre today than the medium, the Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull are really going to suffer because of that. So that really could help Aston Martin, because Aston Martin have 2 new sets of hard tyres. Lando Norris has 2 new sets of hard tyres as well. So, yeah, we'll watch out for that. Because, again, if the hard tyre is performing a lot better, that is really going to help Norris, Alonso, Stroll in the, in 4th, 6th, and 7th, respectively. So we'll see how it plays out there. But yeah, that's what it's looking like tyres-wise going into today's Austrian Grand Prix. And just seen as well confirmation, about 45 minutes ago, this is confirmation that Kevin Magnussen will start in the pit lane as well. So Magnussen and De Vries will start from the pit lane. Paul Squibb saying, why is there no 0% option in the poll for the Ferrari win? You know why? It's because I didn't want you guys all voting for 0% because it would just be really embarrassing. And I do believe they do have a chance of winning. And I think, you know, if you're being totally serious, everyone would have to admit that they have a chance of winning today. So yeah, that's why I didn't put 0% as an option. Anyway, let's get on to the teams and get on to the keys for those teams today and why I think they'll end up with the results that I've predicted. So we'll start with Red Bull Racing. We'll start with Max Verstappen. So for Verstappen, the key obviously, hold on to the lead on the first lap and build over a second's gap to the cars behind. Because, you know, with the Ferrari, if it does have DRS activation on the back of the Red Bull is very quick in a straight line, but if the Ferrari has DRS open in the 3 DRS zones, that Red Bull is going to be under serious pressure, as we saw actually to a degree last season. So yeah, he has to make sure he basically does a Sebastian Vettel, build, you know, a 1.5 lead after say 3 laps. And if he does that, then he will be absolutely fine, I reckon, because the Red Bull will be just about quick enough to, you know, here or there, pull away, 10th or so here or there, you know, pull the gap to the Ferraris. And as long as they get the strategy right and they don't go for anything that is vastly different in a bad way compared to most teams, then Red Bull should be fine to win the race today. And Max, we know, definitely quick enough to win at this circuit. So yeah, Verstappen, I think, will win because I think he will hold on to the lead, as we saw yesterday. Even if he loses the lead into the first corner, he'll just reassert his authority later on in the first lap, diving down the inside of turn 3 or even turn 4. He'll try and assert that authority. With Sergio Perez, though, Perez, of course, starts in 15th place. I think it would honestly be best for Perez to start on the hard compound tyre, because most likely pretty much all the teams are going to be pitting between lap 15 and lap, say, 22, 23. And even if Perez, you know, starts on the hard tyres and for a few laps the hard tyres don't prove to be firing up that quickly, or they're not, you know, super quick, he's not going to lose as much time today starting on the hard tyre as he would do at other tracks, because, you know, being held up by traffic is not really as bad of a thing at this circuit, but also because of people probably having to pit a bit earlier than, you know, what you normally would, he's not going to lose out massively, I think, from starting on the hard compound tyre. So yeah, if I'm Red Bull, I start Perez on the hard tyre, and I would try and take Perez, say, into the race and pit him, say, about lap 30-ish, I reckon would be a good enough time to pit. And then, because he has only, if he does start on the hard tyres, he'll have no hard tyres left for the rest of the race. Then you know, do a 2-stop from there on, where you use 2 sets of mediums, and then you can do, you know, say, I don't know, a 17, 18 lap stint on the mediums, and then, you know, pit around lap 47, 48-ish, and then go on to another set of mediums to make sure he's very quick at the end of the race. That's what I think would be the best strategy for him. Because the hard tyres, I wouldn't be surprised if they did turn out to be the best tyre. And it would probably be best for him, if he's going to gain positions early, to start, I think, on that compound, rather than, you know, run the mediums, and if the mediums go off too early, he'll pit too early and not be able to get that clean air by staying out a bit longer than others. So yeah, I think that's what Red Bull should do. Of course, we will see soon what they will do. But yeah, Perez, I think, will finish in 9th place because I just don't think he's got the confidence still and the speed combined to be just easily getting into the top 5 today, even though he should be in what is, a very quick car. And yeah, I think, with how stiff the competition is as well in the top 10 at the minute, with Lando Norris in there and looking very good as well, I think Sergio Perez will, finish in 9th place and struggle, really, to get anywhere near the top 5. Even if Lando Norris doesn't finish in 5th place and it's Alonso or Stroll, I still think he'll struggle to really get, up in or even near that position. So yeah, 9th place I'm going to go for Sergio Perez. And the win I will go for Max Verstappen. So with Ferrari, who are really the only team outside of Red Bull that can win the race today, what can they do to win today's Austrian Grand Prix? Well, if you look at last year, where we had a similar situation, it was actually the top 3 on the grid for last year's race was exactly the same: Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz. What happened was Ferrari in the race were not just quicker than Red Bull, they were much quicker than Red Bull in the race. But one thing Ferrari did was they pitted a lot later than Red Bull for all of their pit stops. So even though Red Bull would regain the position once Leclerc had overtaken, Verstappen, once Leclerc then pitted, quite a few laps later, then on much fresher tyres would very quickly catch Verstappen again and very easily repass him. Will Ferrari try and do something similar? It really depends if they've got the same pace as what they showed a year ago. I mean, if they do, they may as well just go for the same strategy of just pitting a few laps later to make sure they've got the fresher tyres, which will really help them, obviously, to have the best pace over the course of the 71 laps. But if their pace is pretty much level with Red Bull, or if they are quicker than Red Bull, but they're not massively quicker, they're only like a tenth or so quicker, and, they're only a couple seconds behind, say, Verstappen, then the best thing to do is the undercut. That's the best thing to do for Ferrari if they are, as quick as Red Bull, if not a tad quicker, and only a couple seconds behind, say, with Charles Leclerc, is go for the undercut, even if it's, resulting in Charles Leclerc having to pit on lap 15, or even earlier, lap 13, lap 12, just so he can get that undercut done on Max Verstappen. Then that would be, I think, the best thing for Ferrari to do. And even if Verstappen stayed out for quite a few more laps, yes, of course, once Verstappen then would pit, he would have much fresher tyres. But if Ferrari are genuinely faster, then even if Ferrari do pit a few laps before Red Bull for the first pit stop, they can then play around with the strategy to make sure that they can still, win the race by maybe, going a bit longer with their middle stint than they went with their first stint, to make sure that if they do pit again earlier before Red Bull, it's not a lot earlier before Red Bull if they do decide to pit a few laps before. So, yeah, I think really just keeping the gap, say, within 2 seconds is the key for Charles Leclerc in the first stint. And then I think Ferrari should trigger the undercut, even if Leclerc comes out in traffic again, because of how easy it is to overtake here. And with the DRS activation he'll be able to utilize, I don't think that's really that much of an issue at all. So, yeah, I think definitely if they are, in that type of buffer, they should absolutely trigger the undercut. And if they do decide to do that with Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, let's say Leclerc, going into the first stint, let me go back to Sainz. Let's say Leclerc's only a second and a half behind or a couple seconds behind, and Sainz is a further, 2 or 3 seconds behind. Then what I would do, honestly, if I was Ferrari, the best thing to do would be to run Carlos Sainz a bit longer into the race if Ferrari are genuinely as quick, if not a tad quicker than Red Bull. Then I think, honestly, covering off Red Bull, having the advantage of fresher tyres compared to Leclerc for, the rest of the race by running Sainz also quite a bit longer into the race would be a good idea for Ferrari. So really, in terms of strategy for them, it comes down to when we get to the first pit stop window around lap 14, 15-ish, it really depends on how far behind they are Red Bull. If they're, 5-6 seconds behind, then there's nothing they can do, and they may as well just cover off the cars behind them because they're not going to beat Red Bull at that point. But again, if they're only a second and a half or so behind the Red Bull team, then what I would do is split the strategy and then do an undercut with Leclerc and then run Sainz as long into the race as Verstappen goes with the first pit stop, or you could run Sainz even a few laps longer than Verstappen into the race with the first stint, just to cover off that advantage that Red Bull may have with pitting a few laps later than Leclerc in the Ferrari for the first pit stop. So we will see what Ferrari do. All depends, like I said, on what their pace is like in the first stint as to whether they can actually win the race today and possibly maneuver something on strategy to pull off the win. In my view, though, Max and Red Bull will prove to be just too quick and they won't be able to be close enough to pull off enough of an undercut. And even if they decide to go for an undercut, I think Red Bull and Verstappen will have enough pace to cover it off. And even if they decide to split strategy and run one car longer than the other into the race, I still don't think that'll work, to be honest, because I think Red Bull and Max will be just about quick enough to cover off that possibility. But I really hope I'm wrong, because it would be great to see a different team win a race in 2023, and be great to see Ferrari win again. Again, a year since they last won a race. They've clearly improved in the last couple of weeks, and it would be great to see them back on the top step of the podium, and especially Charles Leclerc, someone who's had a very difficult start to the 2023 season, which is not entirely down to himself. Mercedes-Benz next. What do you call it? Lewis Hamilton starts in 5th. To be honest, I don't really see what Mercedes can do to finish on the podium today, because I do genuinely think Red Bull and Ferrari are just too quick. I don't think there's really Mercedes anything they can do to put themselves on the podium unless we get, a couple retirements or something like that. So I think, Lewis Hamilton will finish in 4th place. I think the Mercedes will be quicker than the McLaren in the race, and Hamilton definitely will be better in the race than what we saw in the sprint and also in qualifying as well. Hamilton, I think, will finish in 4th, comfortably ahead of the cars behind, comfortably behind, though, the cars ahead. If he is, though, to, somehow put up a fight against, say, Carlos Sainz for the final podium position, the only thing I can see Mercedes doing that could possibly put themselves in that position is if they can put themselves onto a fresher compound of tyre for the last how many laps if we get like a late virtual safety car or safety car. That's the only thing I can see that can really make that happen. For the man on screen, George Russell, who had a much better sprint yesterday than what we saw on Friday in qualifying, where he was really quite poor throughout. He clearly is not very quick this weekend. I don't see him quicker than Hamilton in the race. I think he will make some progress, but only will get up to 8th place, because I don't think he will have enough speed to beat any of the Aston Martins. And I don't think, obviously, like I said earlier, I don't think McLaren will be really massively slower compared to what we saw from them in qualifying. So I think Mercedes will be 8th with George Russell and 4th with Lewis Hamilton, which would still be a decent result given where they're starting. That would be, 16 points? If Aston Martin were to finish where I think they will, that would still be more points scored for Mercedes than Aston Martin by 2 points, and would be a good result around, again, what is supposed to be probably a weaker track for Mercedes on the calendar before we go to Silverstone, where I do expect Mercedes to be super quick with their new massive upgrade coming to, lots of important areas of the car, we believe. The suspension again, side pod, floor, all of that stuff. And yeah, hopefully we'll see maybe even Lewis Hamilton contend for pole position or the race victory at Silverstone. Definitely got a feeling that is possible if the upgrade next week does work for the Mercedes team. But for today, yeah, 4th and 8th I think it will be. The only thing strategically that George Russell could do to maybe make that result a bit better, I'll just go back onto him, is, like I said with Sergio Perez, start on the hard compound tyre and then run just quite a bit longer into the race than other people, say 30 laps in, and then finish the race on softer and fresher tyres. That'd probably be the best thing that Mercedes could do. But other than that, can't really see what else they can do to massively boost their results. If they can somehow get a podium, that would be amazing. But yeah, realistically, it will be no podium today for Mercedes for the first time since Monaco. Now on to the Aston Martin team. Lance Stroll, man on screen, starts 6th on the grid, out-qualifying Fernando Alonso for the second time in the last 3 races. And Lance, even though in Canada he was definitely very poor, definitely seems like he's improving, which is good to see. I know Alonso was quicker than him in the sprint yesterday, and Stroll only barely held Alonso off for that 4th place. But that was still a very good result for Stroll, and a vital amount of points for him in the championship, and for Aston Martin as well, most importantly. So yeah, a very good weekend for Stroll. And with him ahead of Alonso on the grid, you can't really ask that much more of Stroll so far this weekend. I don't think he'll beat Alonso. I think Alonso will prove to be just too quick in the race. He'll be not too far behind. But really, what Lance Stroll needs to look out for is behind him when it comes to George Russell in the Mercedes and Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, who will definitely make progress through the field. And I do think Mercedes and Red Bull will have the better race pace today. So yeah, more attention will have to be paid to his mirrors rather than what's ahead of him. The only car I could see him overtaking today is Lando Norris if McLaren just don't prove to be as quick as I think they will. But yeah, I do think Stroll will still finish in 7th place. Fernando Alonso, I'm going in 6th place. And even if my prediction, for the top 10 is exactly correct and would see them, be outscored by the Mercedes team by a couple points in the race today, 6th and 7th around probably their weakest Grand Prix of the season so far would be a pretty good result. I know Spain, obviously, they finished in 6th and 7th, but I don't think that was necessarily a weak race for them. I think a lot of that result was down to Fernando Alonso hurting or breaking his floor in qualifying in Catalonia. I think that's a big reason why he, just didn't have a great race in Spain. I think, was it 4 weeks ago now? But yeah, this weekend, genuinely, throughout the entire weekend, Aston Martin have just not been very quick at all. So 6th and 7th, where they're starting, would be just fine for the team. That'd be 14 points, a good amount of points around a week track for them before Silverstone next weekend, which is literally their home Grand Prix because their factory is next door to Silverstone. I'm sure they'll be bringing some upgrades to the British Grand Prix as well. And that track, in general, will suit their car better than what this track does for their car. So it'd be a very good damage limitation for the Aston Martin team. Strategically, though, the only thing of interest, I think, for Aston Martin is because they are probably the kindest team on their tyres. I think Aston Martin could get away with starting on the mediums and running those medium tyres quite a few laps more into the race than other teams. And because they have an extra set of new hard compound tyres compared to Mercedes, Red Bull and Ferrari, if the hard tyres do prove to be the much better tyre in this race today, then the best strategy for Aston Martin would be to, try and do 25, maybe even 27, 28 laps on the medium compound tyre to start with, and then do 2 hard compound tyre stints to finish the race, because they would then be on fresher hard tyres and would obviously be able to use that advantage of having an extra set of hard tyres. So maybe, if the hard tyres do prove to be very good today, that will really help the Aston Martin team. But we'll have to see how that tyre genuinely performs in the race today. Hopefully for Aston Martin, that choice of keeping back an extra set of hard tyres will really pay off for them. Next couple teams we'll go through quickly, and then I'll just quickly look on Twitter to see if there's any breaking news I can bring you guys. Alpine next up. They are pretty slow in qualifying. They were very, very just bang average, to be honest. Nothing really positive to say about their car. Looking at the sector time data like we did earlier, they were never really quick in any sector of the track. There's nothing positive of note we have seen from Alpine this weekend. The only positive, I guess, is that they scored a couple points in the sprint race yesterday. But other than that, there's just been nothing really positive from this team, which is really disappointing, because I was expecting a bit extra from them this weekend. But simply, they have been pretty terrible compared to what I expected. Pierre Gasly does start in P9. I still think he'll finish in the points because I think his car is good enough to beat the Williams of Alex Albon and obviously the Haas of Hulkenberg, because the Alpine will have much better race pace than the Haas car. But other than that, I don't really have much else to say when it comes to Alpine, because they just don't have, they're not one of the top 5 quickest teams right now. McLaren have definitely taken a step ahead of them. That's clear to see. Now they're just really focusing on teams like Williams and Haas and other teams as well, to try and just secure something in the top 10. It's just amazing how quickly their performance has dropped off, and again, it's because they just haven't upgraded the car enough in the last couple months. Really, they brought minor upgrades to the car, which has improved the performance, but just nothing massive to really move on the development, when Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston Martin, and now McLaren have brought massive upgrades, which has massively upgraded, no pun intended, their car. But all those teams have made a clear step forward with their upgrades. With Alpine, because of how minor their upgrades have been in comparison, they just haven't really gone anywhere with this car. So really hoping at Silverstone we see like a big upgrade package for them, because I am really down in the dumps when it comes to Alpine at the minute, when obviously a month ago I was really, really positive about them. But Gasly will finish in 10th. Ocon will probably finish 11th or 12th. Doesn't really matter though, because Alpine are barely going to score any points today. And I think definitely, even if McLaren don't prove to have the pace to fight with Aston Martin or Mercedes today, I still think McLaren will beat Alpine today, because they clearly have a much faster car. Lando was half a second quicker in qualifying, and I could see definitely that type of advantage being carried out in the race as well. So yeah, depressing part of the season now for the Alpine team. For McLaren, though, it is quite the opposite. Let's go on to Lando Norris. And yeah, what a weekend he's had. He was obviously 4th in qualifying. That's why he'll be starting 4th for today's race. He was 3rd in sprint qualifying. A shame what happened to him in the sprint race, because his poor start was because of the 2 Red Bulls having a really almighty scrap at turn 3, where he almost came to a stop, Lando, and lost so much forward momentum that, a lot of the other cars around him were able to overtake him at turn 3 and get past. And that's really what cost Lando having, a 3rd or a 4th place finish in the sprint. And honestly, I think Lando Norris, if he had maintained 3rd on that first lap or even got up to second like Hülkenberg did in the sprint. I think Norris could have finished in, say, third place in the sprint. I think the McLaren was genuinely in wet conditions yesterday quick enough for Lando to finish in the top three, which would have been vital points for them to close the gap to Alpine. But sadly, Lando just missed out on a points finish in the sprint yesterday, finishing in P9. Obviously, he didn't pit for a set of dry tyres, so that's why he missed out. But yeah, such a shame what happened for him. But in view of the race today, I really hope that McLaren do genuinely have the pace to really maintain where they are on the grid and where have the type of pace they really had in qualifying. It would be really great if they could, because it would really, going forward after this race, you'd have to say then we'd have an extra front-running team in Formula 1, now being McLaren. And of course with Lando Norris in that car, we know he's absolutely wringing the neck of it, the neck of the car, and we know that he's getting absolutely everything out of that car pretty much every weekend. Piastri to a degree is as well. Obviously, Piastri has the old McLaren car, so we can't really expect anything of him in today's race. But for Lando, like I said earlier, I do think Mercedes will prove to be too quick. That's why I think Hamilton will finish in P4. But I do believe that he, in that McLaren, has the pace to hold off the two Aston Martins and Russell and Perez and secure P5. And if he does have that pace to finish in P5, then again, that is really encouraging going forward, because with another big upgrade coming in 3 weeks at the Hungaroring, which will probably be their final, not the final upgrade for them, but their final big upgrade of the season, then that really should put McLaren for the rest of the season in a position to be fighting with, Mercedes and Aston Martin and Ferrari to a certain extent. But yeah, Lando, my prediction of him still is to finish in P5. Again, with Aston Martin, like I said a moment ago, for them, the key for Lando when it comes to strategy is that extra set of hard compound tyres that he has compared to the two Mercedes, two Red Bulls, two Ferraris. And if McLaren's pace is genuinely quite good, then, and if the hard compound tyres as well are, if they're looking good as well, then and looking a lot better than the mediums and, of course, the soft compound tyres, then I think that could prove to be a very important advantage for Lando in this race today. So yeah, Lando Norris, I think, will finish in 5th place. But Oscar Piastri, Oscar has had a good weekend. I know it doesn't look like it, but given he's running the old McLaren car, if Lando was running the old car as well, I think we would probably be praising Oscar quite a bit for how he's performed this weekend, because 13th on the grid in a car that is much slower than what Lando is running is, I think, quite impressive. So yeah, Oscar, I think, has had a good weekend, was very good on the sprint yesterday once he went onto dry tyres, was absolutely brilliant in his overtaking moves on Leclerc and Albon at turn 3 and 4 respectively, just dive bombing his way through the field. So yeah, Piastri looking good. I think realistically he can't finish in the points because I think Alpine are just too quick for him in the car that he is having to drive. And I think really for Oscar, I think he's relying more so on retirements or just massive issues that cost people ahead of him a lot of time for him to end up actually finishing, even say in P11, never mind in the top 10. Yeah, most likely Piastri will not make the points, but Lando Norris, I think, will. And I'm sure McLaren will definitely end up, even if they're not as quick as I think they'll be, and Aston Martin, Mercedes clearly, and even Perez from 15th on the grid, if they all prove to be just way too quick, I am absolutely sure that, I'm absolutely sure that Lando Norris will be finishing ahead of, be finishing ahead of the Alpines, because I'm definitely sure McLaren are now faster than the Alpine team. But just looking at Twitter to see if there's any news. One piece of news I can bring you guys. I should have actually told you about this yesterday. So in Canada, you guys will remember that Lando Norris was given a penalty for unsportsmanlike behaviour, and it was because he because he deliberately held up the pack of cars behind him when the safety car came out to give a big enough gap between him and Piastri, who was ahead of him at the time, so Piastri could pit and Lando wouldn't lose that extra time waiting for Piastri to finish his pit stop. It was the right penalty in my view, but McLaren did request a right of review. And there was a hearing, I think this morning, and it's been announced 20 minutes ago that their petition for a right of review has been rejected. So it seems that no new evidence was able to be submitted by McLaren, because that's most likely what the reason is that there was no new relevant evidence to change the steward's mind from Canada as to, getting rid of the penalty. Because, of course, on track, Lando Norris finished in 9th place, so would be a couple extra points for McLaren. But in the end, it ended up being, I think, was it 13th that Lando finished in? And again, I still think the penalty was fair. I don't understand why so many people online are getting so butthurt, especially Lando Norris fans, about the wording of unsportsmanlike behaviour. Just because you do unsportsmanlike behaviour doesn't mean you are unsportsmanlike. But what he did was unsportsmanlike behaviour. He was deliberately breaking the rules to gain an advantage. That's what unsportsmanlike behaviour is. So, yeah, I think the continuous crying about that wording in the last 2 weeks has been actually quite funny to see, to be honest, but it's definitely been very ridiculous. Just trying to see if there's any other news that I can bring you guys. And I've just seen news. The Austrian Grand Prix, it's been announced by Formula One, will continue on the calendar until at least 2030, which is great because we do love the Red Bull Ring. It would be a massive shame to have it off the calendar. Obviously, we've had it on the calendar, I think, since the 1970s, even though back then was a much different layout. You could arguably say better layout, but was definitely more dangerous. I've just seen as well a tweet from Luke Smith, who is an F1 journalist, who has tweeted out that he's asked, I'm not necessarily sure if he asked this, but he's tweeted out comments from Jock Clear. You guys may remember him. He used to be working at Mercedes. He was Nico Rosberg's engineer. He was Barrichello's engineer for Brawn back in 2009. He was at BAR and Honda, and I'm sure you guys know who Jock Clear is. I think it was Jacques Villeneuve's engineer at Williams when he won the title as well back in 97. He now works for Ferrari, and he thinks, apparently, that Ferrari's 2-versus-1 advantage at the front will rely on keeping Verstappen under pressure, making him push more to use up his tyres. And then there's a quote from Claire that says, quote, Max knows he's got to create a bit of breathing space because otherwise that 2-on-1 at pit stop time will be crucial. So that's clearly part of Ferrari's strategy today, is to push Max into wearing those tyres out to try and bring them a bit closer. And it is a lot easier, as a team, if you're going to fight for the win, if you've got a 2v1. I mean, we saw plenty of times with Mercedes compared to Red Bull at times when Max didn't have a teammate really competitive enough, that when Mercedes had a 2v1, it was a really beneficial thing. So definitely something to look out for in the race today. And actually, one piece of news that I do need to quickly just announce is, sadly, my co-commentator Niblo won't be on today. He's just let me know that he won't be on today. He did say, I think a day or so ago, that he wasn't sure if he was going to make it for tonight's stream. Tonight, when he says tonight, he means tonight for him, not tonight for me, of course. But yeah, it's just let me know that he won't be on today, which obviously is no problem. So yeah, it'll just be solo commentary from me. I'm sure, though, he'll be here for the British Grand Prix. I know he definitely loves the British Grand Prix, and we've covered some absolutely incredible British Grand Prix in the last few years. But, right, so just going to see if there's any other news on Twitter. And no, can't see anything at the moment. So let's go through the rest of the teams, and then we're only, half an hour away from the start of the race. I will tweet and post the link out of the stream again in a moment. So yeah, I'll make sure to do that very soon. So let's just finish up the final few teams. Alfa Romeo are pretty shit. They finished 19th and 20th in the sprint yesterday. Don't quite know why Alfa Romeo decided to keep Valtteri Bottas out on Inters, when really it was worth the risk for him to pit onto dry tyres, but that's what they decided to do, and it ended up not working. But yeah, they are one of the slowest teams this weekend, and starting 14th and 17th, they have no chance of finishing in the points. For Haas F1, Nico Hülkenberg, what a weekend he's having. Again, 8th on the grid today, was 4th in sprint qualifying, and was at one point, for a few laps, running 2nd in the sprint race. He's having such a great weekend, and such a great season. Been one of the top few drivers this season, to be honest. So yeah, Hülkenberg, absolutely superb this weekend, and making Q3, I think, for the, 6th time in the first 9 races. Something that I did not think would happen whatsoever in the first 9 races. But again, sadly, because of the Haas's lack of race pace and inability to look after their tyres, he will drop down the field and not finish in the points, which is such a shame, because if the Haas car could actually have good race pace, Hülkenberg would be comfortably in the top 10 of the championship right now, because of how many times he started in the top 10. But he's only finished in the points, I think, once in the actual Sunday races in 2023, which was in Australia. Just shows you how bad their pace has been on a Sunday. I mean, it's an everlasting problem with this team. Always really quick on a Saturday, but then on a Sunday, they completely fall apart. They did have a good race here last year where they were 6th and 8th, but I just don't see them maintaining that type of performance. So yeah, Haas, unfortunately, I don't think will finish in the points. The only thing that is beneficiary for them is their straight line speed. It's one of the best throughout the field, which will definitely help. For AlphaTauri, I know Yuki Tsunoda, we're used to his heroics, but AlphaTauri have the worst car this weekend, so I don't really see what Tsunoda can do. The best I can see from Tsunoda is like a 13th or a 14th. Yeah, that car is just terrible. No straight line speed, not really enough grip to be fighting with teams like Alpine, Williams, or anyone like that, really, consistently throughout the lap. So yeah, just not good enough from AlphaTauri. By the way, if you're wondering about the weather, it has come over quite a bit more blue at the track now, and looks quite a nice day at the Red Bull Ring. So no real threat of rain for today's race. So it should be a dry race. And finally, the Williams team, Alex Albon starting in P10. Brilliant weekend he's had. Bit of a shame that it did dry out the sprint race yesterday, because he was in 7th place and heading probably for 7th place in the sprint as well. So yeah, it's a shame that it ended up drying out for him, because a couple extra points would have been so crucial for the Williams team. But yeah, P10, I mean, he's definitely got a good chance of points. It just depends. What is Williams' pace in comparison to Alpine? That's purely what it depends on. If they've got the pace to beat Alpine, and Albon can, say maybe get ahead of Gasly at the start, then absolutely, he can finish in the points. But if Alpine do prove to be just too quick, then I just think he's just going to miss out, unfortunately. But I really hope I'm proved wrong, because I just want to see this team get, higher and higher in the championship, because we want to see Williams really bounce back and become a proper midfield team again, which they are definitely on the road towards that but they're just not quite there yet. But let's see if Albon can secure another points finish in 2023. Logan Sargeant starts in 18th. He'll be the last man actually physically on the grid because Magnussen and De Vries will be starting from the pit lane. Yeah, he's had a poor weekend, Logan. If he can just try and overtake a couple people and finish, I don't know, 15th, 16th, that would be a decent enough recovery, but really needs to improve at Silverstone because, you know, with Albon in P10, really, Logan should have been qualifying in like 13th or 14th place because Williams were definitely quick enough to be, at the very least, getting into Q2. But Logan didn't really get anywhere near getting out of Q1. But those guys is what I have to say in regards to the teams. And yeah, we have just under half an hour to go until the start of the 2023 Austrian Grand Prix. Make sure to keep posting your comments in the chat, guys, in regards to what you think is going to happen in today's race in half an hour's time. And make sure to keep voting in that poll at the top of the live chat. And I'll make sure to read out the results of that in about 25 minutes' time. And yeah, I will get to your comments in just a moment. I'm just going to post the link of the stream out in a couple places, and then we'll get to your comments. So come join us here to watch along the 2023 Austrian GP. And as well, just to say, yeah, unfortunately, I will be solo today, as Niblo is unable to join me today. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be around next week for the British Grand Prix. So, yeah, I'll just quickly post a link out on Twitter, and then we'll go through some of the best comments in the chat. Right, come. Oh, God. And thankfully, Twitter started working right when I need it to. Come join us here to watch along the Austrian GP. And there you go. Just trying to see if we can find any more news. And no, can't see any new piece of news at the minute, other than, yeah, than what I last talked about, which was McLaren's right of review regarding the 5-second penalty that Lando Norris got in Canada, being rejected. So there won't be a review of that incident. Right, so with not too long to go now, let's get into your comments. Actually, one thing I will do is have a quick drink of water before we progress any further forward. As, yeah, on the grid right now, it's sunny. It's not totally sunny, you know, there are clouds still about, but it's just, you know, mostly sunny, I would say, at the minute. But there are still plenty of clouds around. Pretty hot and humid day at the Red Bull Ring. So yeah. As Sky F1 were just interviewing Christian Horner on the grid. Martin Brundle was not interviewing him because he's not actually at the race this weekend. Of course, he does tend to take a few races off for his own health, preserve his health for when he's most needed. And the people doing the grid walk is Ted Kravitz. We all love Ted, of course. You know, he's been around for what? I think he's been officially a pit lane reporter for 21 years now as Ted. He started in, was it, I don't know if it was 2002 or it was late 2001. Or it might have been in 2001. I can't remember exactly when he actually started, you know, what the first race was that he did. I think the first permanent year where he was the pit lane reporter for ITV was 2002, but I think he did do it before in 2001. Maybe even the year 2000 as well. because, what do you call it? James Allen, who at the time used to do the pit lane reporting, occasionally stepped in for Murray Walker during Murray's final year in commentary. So, yeah, probably 22 years, actually, since he started as a pit lane reporter. And next to him, doing the grid walk, is Bernie Collins, who used to be, I think, the race strategist for Aston Martin / Racing Point / Force India. And she is really great to have on that team because she's so incredibly smart when it comes to, race strategy, tyres. Really, really great at that. And really great at informing the viewers as to, the keys of the weekend and the keys of certain sessions and is how things most likely will play out, because obviously she has very recent experience of how the teams do things and how the Pirelli tyres as of, the last couple years are. As Lewis Hamilton's car sat on the grid there in 5th place, which is looking out on the TV broadcast. And yeah, let me get into your comments then, whilst we wait for the race to get going. Rooksfoot saying, bit gusty today. Looking at the track, can't see really anything substantial in terms of the wind. It's probably just a gentle breeze, nothing, nothing massive. BA says the poll doesn't give an option for 5% chance for Ferrari win today. I think in hindsight, I probably should have put a 0% option so you guys could all vote for 0%, because that's probably what you guys would have voted for anyway. Vinster says Fernando will pass Lance when the opportunity rises. Mr. Young Hegelian says Checo will be the driver of the day for sure. He'll probably, because of the progress he'll make. Adam Osborne says someone would definitely be put in the gravel at turn 4. We have seen it. I think, was it a couple years ago, we had Norris and Perez at turn 4. Was Perez... I can't remember what happened to Perez in last year's race. Because I know... In terms of last year's race, I know Sainz retired with a massive engine failure, but I can't remember what happened to Perez, whether he was, put off the track or whatever. Let me look. Oh, yeah, Russell hit him. Yeah, Russell hit Perez at turn 4. And then Perez had too much damage and he had to retire. Yeah, that was what happened. So, and then, yeah, that's what caused Russell to have front wing damage and then end up finishing way below his teammate, even though he started 4 positions higher. Right. Yeah. Turn 4 definitely is a place where we'll see incidents. I mean, obviously, Hamilton and Albon, 2020, we all remember that. Norris, Perez in 2021. Russell, Perez last year. It's a very tight corner, and with how wide and clumsy these cars are, it's inevitable at times that a crash is going to happen. So yeah, we could absolutely see a turn 4 accident. Let's find some other comments here if I can. Mickey, do you think Stroll will stay ahead of Alonso again? Nope, I think Alonso will get past him at some point. Vinster says no one will be close enough to Max to apply serious pressure. It is definitely quite possible that will be the case, but I just really hope that, Ferrari, who sound pretty confident coming into this race, I have to say, I really hope that confidence is justified. View says, I don't think the wording is wrong, but it's just inconsistent ruling. I've seen other drivers hold up cars behind them and haven't seen a penalty put on them. It just feels weird. To be honest, to determine whether it is an inconsistent ruling, you would have to, bring up, or we would, and I would have to, go through other cases where it's happened and not been penalised. The only one way that I could understand why you say that it's an inconsistent ruling is because with that offence of, deliberately holding up the pack behind you to allow your teammate ahead to make their pit stop and then not get held up yourself by waiting for him to, do his pit stop, sometimes that offence is not always obvious in terms of when it is committed. Because some drivers might just very cheekily, brake a couple times quite hard and then, go at the pace they should. They'll, play games sometimes with how they do it. But if you do it, if you commit that offense very obviously, where it's like a slam dunk, then it's pretty hard not to punish it. But yeah, I'm sure, there's definitely other cases where you could probably say that they've not punished people for that exact offense in other cases. But sometimes when it does happen, it's not a massively obvious case of it. Silverback says, are you drunk and stoned, Chazza? Hamilton is not on pole or winning Silverstone. We'll see. If their upgrade does make the car a bit quicker, which I anticipate it will, plus Lewis Hamilton, we have to remember, is by far the best driver at Silverstone. There is no driver on the grid that can match Lewis Hamilton around that circuit. Consistently, at least. Yeah, that combination of an improved car with upgrades and Lewis Hamilton at Silverstone, who definitely, since that car's been improved, has been much more confident in the car and is a lot happier with how the car feels and all of that. I think definitely it's a possibility for Silverstone, given what Lewis Hamilton is capable of. So yeah, it's definitely not out of the question. Because at the minute, I would say Mercedes are probably, I don't know, how close would I say Mercedes are at the minute to Red Bull? Probably 3/4 of a second away from the Red Bull team. But, if this upgrade really, improves their car a lot and they close the gap to Red Bull by 3/4 of a second, plus Lewis Hamilton pulls out an extra special performance at Silverstone, that could be just enough for him to possibly get pole position and win the race. It's definitely not impossible. Right, let's find some of the comments here if I can. Trying to see if I can find some other good comments here. Turbo Power says, hi Chaz, how are you? Dry race today or rain? Yeah, it's going to be a dry race. And hello to you. Hope you're doing well. And I hope everybody in the chat is having a good day. As we're, just over 15 minutes now until the race starts. This build-up has gone by very quickly. Feels like we only started the stream like 10 minutes ago. Mr. Young Hegelian says, Logan Sargent makes De Vries look good, the new Latifi. I still, think it's too early to, properly go in on Logan about his performance. Because, this weekend he's definitely been poor. There's no doubt about that. He's got no excuses for his performance this weekend. But I want to still wait until really the end of the European season, which will obviously be Monza at the start of September, to get a good idea as to really where he's at compared to his teammate and just the other Formula 1 drivers in general. But the drivers are currently on the starting grid, and they're just awaiting the start of the national anthem, which I think is about to take place at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, Austria. One thing I want to get into, actually, before we get going, a very nice thing to get into before we, start this race, is I was notified when I loaded up my channel dashboard for my YouTube channel. Before I then went into the live streaming dashboard to, see the dashboard I normally see when I'm live, where I can see you guys in the chat and also see my, concurrent viewers, likes, all of that stuff. Yeah, on my normal channel dashboard, they let me know, YouTube, that today is the 5-year birthday or anniversary of this channel's creation. The 2nd of July, 2018 was the exact date that I made this channel. And I think that day was the 2nd of July. I think it was the day after the 2018 Austrian Grand Prix. Might have been the day of. I can't remember exactly, but yeah. Yeah, it was either the day of or the day after the Austrian Grand Prix. But yeah, this channel is officially 5 years old. So I just want to say to everyone who is watching, who is subscribed, thank you so much for the support in the last 5 years. When it comes to the content, obviously personal issues I've had, mental health issues. Obviously, you guys know about that if you're a long-time subscriber. About all the mental health issues I had during 2020, 2021 to a certain extent as well. So yeah, massively appreciate the support. Love you guys, so much. And yeah, here's to another 5 years, hopefully, on the channel. And hopefully, more views, more subscribers, and all of that stuff. And obviously, at the minute, we've got, I think, 12,500 subscribers. So we're not that far away from 13,000. And yeah, so just want to say, again, massive thank you to you guys for the support over the last 5 years. Of course, I did have a channel which pretty much had the same name as this one before I created this channel, which I had to delete because I had many copyright strikes on it from like bot accounts or something. It was very unusual what happened. Yeah, I had that channel before, I think, since like 2016, I think it was even. The old Chazza HD channel, which was content-wise absolutely terrible compared to this one. So yeah, I've been going on YouTube now in terms of Formula 1 since, March of 2016, I think. So, 7.5 years? But yeah, in terms of this channel, 5-year anniversary. And here's to you guys. Blue Flag Alpha, happy birthday, Chaz. Hell yeah, Chazza, congrats to Silverback. Happy birthday, Chazza HT. There's Vinster. Blue Flag Alpha says, I've been following you since 2019. Yeah, you're one of the older subscribers I've got. Yeah, thank you very much for sticking around. Cheers as well, Rook. Happy birthday, Chazza HD channel. Blue Flag Alpha says, I think Baku 2019 is the one where someone copyrighted your stream. I remember that one. Yeah, that was on this channel. Yeah, it was copyright striked. It had a copyright takedown request like midway through the race. And as well, later that year, Hungary, we had the same thing. It was really frustrating with the Hungary one, though, because we had so many live viewers. We had like almost 3,000 concurrent viewers for like quite a long time. And then, but thankfully those issues have gone away for now. And there he is, Count Blah, who is one of the absolute oldest subscribers I've had. He says, congratulations, man. Thanks for sticking through it. Oh, I know I missed you when you were gone. Thank you so much, mate. Again, for sticking around. And as KG and Memnarch is saying as well, yes, rest in peace to Delano Vant Hoff, who sadly, at the young age of just 18 years old, passed away yesterday at Spa after a horrific crash. Unfortunately, very similar to the one that Antoine Hubert had, which took his life as well. The weather conditions for the race were horrendous. it was as bad as the weather we saw for the 2021 Belgian Grand Prix that never happened. And definitely a review needs to take place to determine just what caused it, because we can't keep letting this happen. And, you know, Lelou's clearly a talented driver. He was, in 2021 at just 16, he won the Spanish Formula 4 Championship and was a runner-up last year in the Formula 4 UAE series as well. So clearly a very talented young man. And I think the saddest thing from a human perspective is it was actually his 19th birthday later this month on the 26th of July. So yeah, just so sad that happened. But yeah, rest in peace to him. And let's hope that not just Formula 1, but the motorsport community as a whole will make improvements to the Spa track that can be made to ensure that the chances of it happening again are much lower. Of course, motorsport is dangerous. People are going to die. There is only so much you can do. But if we can do something to improve the safety, we absolutely must. We cannot just wait for someone to be seriously hurt or die before we act. Racing prodigy. What about me, Chaz? Yeah, you're a long-time sub as well. I think you've been around, probably since 2019-ish, I think, as well. Silverback saying, I miss Tonka. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened to him. I've not heard from Tonka in... so long. I don't even know the last time he appeared in the chat. I think he might have done once last year, but yeah, I've not heard anything from him. Just trying to see on my Discord when was the last time I spoke to him. I can't even find him, I don't think. Oh no, here he is. Yeah, the last time I spoke to him on Discord was actually in 2020. So, yeah. I mean, if he's still out there and he still listens, I really hope you're doing well, mate. I know you're obviously, I think he's from Texas, I think he said he was. Did Tonka. Yeah, really hope you're doing well, mate. You know, massively appreciate you, being around for so long, supporting the channel. And if you are still out there, listening from wherever, yeah, really appreciate your support, along with all the other, obviously long-time subscribers I've had, and even you guys who have newly subscribed. I massively appreciate you as well. Silverback says last year one time, yeah, it might have been actually the US Grand Prix. Racing Prodigy says been here since before you hit 1K. Yes, you would have been here when I started this channel, because I hit 1K pretty quickly. I think I hit 1K in about 2 or 3 months. Yeah, you've been here pretty much since the start. So yeah, massively appreciate your support as well the last 5 years. Been great to have you here as well. Crawford B asks, should junior formulas just ban wet driving at Spa, or should there be some kind of competency license at Spa like there is at Nordschleife? I'm not sure about the Nordschleife thing. I don't know enough about that to really have an educated opinion on that specifically, but I don't think it's the right decision to just ban wet weather driving at that track, because you're essentially admitting that the track with low grip is too dangerous for junior Formula cars. And I think the better option would be, if there is an alteration to the track that can be made to significantly lower the chance of that happening, that type of crash happening, then that is the thing that needs to be done, rather than, just banning the cars driving in the wet at Spa. There's one thing I don't want to happen, is I don't want us to stop racing at Spa because it's deemed the track is too dangerous. I don't want that to happen. I mean, it is a dangerous track. It's definitely a lot more dangerous than a lot of the other tracks in the world. But it's such a great racetrack as well, and such an important part of the Formula One calendar that, we just can't afford, as the Formula One community, we just can't afford to lose it. So, yeah. Will Chan says, we love the waffle chazza. Cheers, mate. I think you've been around quite a while as well, if I remember correctly. Anyway, before we get into the races, I think I have waffled quite enough now, as we're only 4 minutes away from the race starting, and the F1 intro is now beginning to play on the TV broadcast. Let me finish up that poll in the live chat, where I asked you guys, what are the chances of Ferrari winning the Austrian Grand Prix today? And you guys voted for 25% chance of them winning today. And that got 70% of the vote. And then next was 50%, then 75%, then 100%. So not many of you think that Ferrari are actually going to win today. Thanks for the 192 votes there, though, for the poll. And yeah, quickly before we get going, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to join us for the next 5 years, and to join us for even more qualifying and race watch-alongs for the rest of this season and beyond. And for everyone watching right now, if you haven't already, smash that like button. We're currently on 60 likes. Let's try and get 75 plus likes if we can by the time the race starts, or just after that. But as we're just like 3 minutes away from the race getting going, let's get into a final couple things before lights out in Austria. So after the sprint race, let's just check in again with the championship standings. Max Verstappen goes into this race 70 points clear of Sergio Perez, who is now only 12 points clear of Fernando Alonso in third. Still close there in the fight for second. Lewis Hamilton comfortably in fourth, with Carlos Sainz in fifth, Russell sixth, Leclerc seventh, Lance Stroll eighth, Esteban Ocon ninth, and Pierre Gasly in P10. Leclerc definitely looking to improve his driver's championship position in today's race, where he's looking very competitive. And on the constructors side, Red Bull way out front, Mercedes second, but I've got Aston Martin now only 5 points behind them in the battle for second place. Ferrari is well closer to them after the sprint. They're only 40 points behind, and obviously start second and third on the grid, so that gap might come down even further between now and the checkered flag. Alpine are in fifth, with McLaren sixth after the race yesterday. Haas are now up to seventh. Will they hang on to that by the time we get to the end of the race? Alfa Romeo are eighth, Williams are ninth, and AlphaTauri are in P10. But now let's get into, guys, for the 2023 Austrian Grand Prix, your starting grid. So it's the same front row as last year, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. On the second row, the two ex-McLaren teammates, Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. Third row, Lewis Hamilton and Lance Stroll. On the fourth row, two Le Mans 24-hour winners, Fernando Alonso and Nico Hülkenberg. And completing the top 10, two drivers who used to race for the Red Bull team, Pierre Gasly and Alexander Albon. Just outside the top 10, you've got George Russell and Esteban Ocon. And then Oscar Piastri and Valtteri Bottas in 13th and 14th. 15th and 16th, Sergio Perez and the man who might replace him in the future as the Red Bull number 2, Yuki Tsunoda for AlphaTauri. On the penultimate row of the grid, it will be Zhou Guanyu and Logan Sargent. And starting from the pit lane, Kevin Magnussen and Nick De Vries. So that is your starting grid. There you go. Finally, it switched over to the watch-along part. So yeah, we are ready now for the start of this race. Oh, right. My PC just froze there for a second. Sorry if you guys had any lag or anything like that. One thing actually I am going to do quickly is I'm just going to delete all of these graphics and things just so my stream runs quicker. Just just to be safe, because my PC then just froze massively. So let me just do that. Formation lap, don't worry, hasn't started yet. So there you go. And of course, once we get through the first, say, 3 or 4 laps, I will update who is on what tyre compound, as all the teams come away from the cars. The front row, it's Verstappen on the medium, Charles Leclerc. What tyre is he on? He's on the medium as well. So, right, so everyone is on the medium tyre, except for Alonso, who is on the hard. Bottas on the hard, and looks like, I think, Zhou or Sargent is on the hard compound as well. Oh no, Magnussen. Right, Magnussen is on the hard compound. So as the formation lap gets underway. So of course, yeah, once we get through the first 2 or 3 laps, I'll update who is on what compound, and then we'll obviously progress forward from that. As yeah, formation lap underway. Should be a pretty quick formation lap, as it is the shortest lap of the year. Max Verstappen already exiting turn 3 and already into the beating heart of the middle sector. Many Dutch fans all over the place, of course. They are expectant of their hero, and to them, their god, Max Verstappen, to deliver yet another beautiful win on a beautiful day in the Styrian Mountains. As yeah, just on board they're showing Fernando Alonso, yeah, the highest placed driver on the hard tyres. That might be, if those hard tyres are really strong today, that might be a really good strategy decision from Aston Martin. We will find out. As Max Verstappen already has come through the penultimate corner. And I think, yeah, is now just entering the final corner of entering the final corner of the formation lap. Just want to read out this final comment from Kama Jiu-Jitsu, who says, congrats on the 5-year anniversary. I've been on your channel non-stop for at least 3 seasons. Thank you very much for that. And he says, I am on a lot of F1 channels, but I'm not one who is able to view the races live. When I first found your channel, I found there's no better play-by-play commentator than you. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that praise. And great to have you along for another race watch along. And let's hope it's another brilliant race here in Austria. As Logan Sargent, who's just coming through the final corner now, he will be the final man on the grid. As again, Magnussen and De Vries will start from the pit lane. So, Red Bull Racing in Canada, guys, won their 100th Grand Prix, but can they now deliver in 2023 a win at their home race? As the cars line up, the lights are on. It's 2, 3, 4, and 5 lights. And it's go in Austria, and Charles Leclerc gets a brilliant start. Verstappen immediately covers him off. And Leclerc now gets a decent run, Willie, on the exit of turn 1, as Lando Norris has not had a great start. Lewis Hamilton's a brilliant start and is now right in the slipstream of Carlos Sainz up to turn 3. Will Leclerc send it against Verstappen? He goes to the outside, but he cannot get the move done as Norris goes round the outside of the Aston Martin there. So Norris keeps P5 ahead of what is probably Lance Stroll, as Verstappen continuing to defend against Leclerc. Leclerc round the outside, but he can't get the move done. Not enough grip. As there's a person in the gravel, it's an AlphaTauri. It's got to be Nick De Vries. As Leclerc having to defend there against Carlos Sainz, and Hamilton not too far behind as well. Brilliant start to the Austrian Grand Prix. So it is Verstappen leading from Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, And then Norris, Stroll, Hülkenberg, and Alonso, I think, is the top 8. Oh, safety car. Full safety car. On now the beginning of lap 2 out of 71. That is something Red Bull definitely didn't want. Because that allows Ferrari, obviously, for longer to take a bit closer to them. So, and yeah, it was actually Yuki Tsunoda who was going through the gravel. He's now coming into the pits. Not sure what damage he has. But let me just go through the current order. So it's actually Alonso in 6th place, not Stroll. I thought it would have been Stroll because Alonso starting on the harder and colder tyre. So, on lap 2, under safety car conditions, as Tsunoda coming into the pit box now. So it's Verstappen leading, Leclerc 2nd, Sainz 3rd, Hamilton 4th, Norris 5th, Alonso 6th, Hülkenberg 7th, Stroll 8th, Gasly 9th, Albon 10th. And then Russell. All right, so the Marshal's picking up a lot of debris on the exit of turn 1. That's why the safety car was called. So Russell 11th, Ocon 12th, Perez has made a good start to 13th. Zhou Guanyu up to 14th. I've noticed with Zhou, he's always been a really good starter, and he's done it again, up to 14th. Piastri 15th. Logan Sargent has had a good one. He's up to 16th. Then it's Bottas 17th. De Vries 18th. Magnussen 19th. And Yuki Tsunoda in 20th position. Now let me update who is on what compound of tyre, as the safety car is going to take the cars through the pit lane, because obviously there are marshals still on the track. So yeah, let me just update the tyres quickly. And yeah, the race should get going again pretty soon, as it's just a minor real issue that's caused the safety car. So just to replay the start. Yeah, Leclerc got a decent start. Verstappen covered him off. Perez there went actually off the track at turn 1. Probably did help him gain some positions. Here's a replay of Valtteri Bottas, who is now in 17th, starting on the hard tyre, and he was in a sandwich a bit there, and the AlphaTauri there of Tsunoda broke his front wing, as here's a replay. So he went up the inside Tsunoda of Bottas, and he broke his front wing on the back of Ocon's right rear tyre. Hopefully no puncture there for Ocon. And then, presumably, that's what sent Tsunoda off into the gravel at turn 4, because he had just had no front downforce, really. Then at turn 3, just showing a replay from Tsunoda's on board. Through turn 3, he actually had a really good run, did Tsunoda. And then a safety car in this lap, by the way. And then, yeah, he just went way too deep at turn 4 because he had no grip to actually slow down. As we are actually on lap 3 now. But yeah, safety car in at the end of this lap, guys. As Max Verstappen will now become the safety car. And yeah, this is what Red Bull did not want, because this now allows Ferrari to get another good slipstream on Verstappen and possibly have another go, overtaking up to turn 3. As Verstappen, obviously no overtaking until the start-finish line. Verstappen weaving around quite a bit. And Verstappen now has decided to get on with it. And will now begin lap 4 of 71. So we're back underway. Leclerc's not too far behind. Who else have we got not too far behind? Lando Norris is actually quite close to the back of Hamilton. Don't think, though, he was able to go for a move as we're back underway. And the Alpine there looks very close behind Stroll. Or Pierre Gasly, only 0.2 of a second behind. So Stroll is going to have to defend. Yep, Gasly all over the place trying to find a way through. And tries to now get a better exit from turn 3. And he does on Stroll, as Tsunoda has overtaken De Vries and Magnussen on that restart. Brilliant restart. But also a great thing for Tsunoda that the safety car came out to limit the damage of him pitting for a new front wing, as Stroll still holding Gasly back. as Perez in 13th. And Tsunoda now up to 17th place. So Tsunoda absolutely flying on this restart. And is now up to 17th place. But we are about to start lap 5 out of 71. And we have now Max Verstappen 1.2 seconds clear of Charles Leclerc. That's exactly what the Red Bull and Max need to do, is build that gap. As behind, Carlos Sainz only 0.6 of a second behind Leclerc. Lando Norris only 0.7 of a second behind Lewis Hamilton, as lap 1, turn 1 has been reviewed by the stewards and they have deemed it not necessary for further investigation. As Sergio Perez there has passed Esteban Ocon at turn 3. Of course, the Red Bull much quicker. No surprise, he's making his way through. And now his next target will be quite a bit harder. It'll be the Mercedes of George Russell. Let me just try and see if I can get the tyres correct and on screen for you guys. As I think also Kevin Magnussen pitted on that first lap because what do you call it? Because he's now on the medium compound tyre as opposed to the hard, unless we were just getting that information wrong there. As it's now lap 6 out of 71. And there you go. Tyre data now on screen. And it is, I'm pretty sure, correct. So the only drivers on the hard tyre is Alonso, Tsunoda and Bottas. As on lap 6, Max is about 1.4 seconds clear of Leclerc. Carlos Sainz right on Leclerc's tail, only 4.5 tenths behind. As the rest of the cars now settling into a pattern. One thing that's good to see, though, is Lando Norris, now that DRS is enabled, is still within a second of Lewis Hamilton. So the McLaren is not just falling away massively. And Lando has already built a 1.7 second lead over Alonso in the battle for 5th. So that McLaren is looking quick initially. As we're on board with Sergio Perez, closely following Russell. And as long as this long DRS train continues, I'm not sure much progress really can be made, as we're now on lap 7 out of 71. And Max Verstappen now 1.9 seconds clear, as the Ferrari's getting very close. Lando has been told track limits again. Hamilton, that's his 3rd time. So Hamilton really stretching his, the amount of allowed times you have, to violate the track limits. He's really stretching the cards he has thin, if that makes any sense. I don't think actually that does make any sense. I think you guys know what I mean. He's, the amount of times he's allowed to extend track limits, he's already used up those lives, if you want to say, just a bit too early, and has still got Lando Norris all over the back of him, just 0.7 of a second behind, as we are now on lap 8. And Max Verstappen on that lap did not pull away as quickly as he did the couple laps before, but Carlos Sainz is right on Leclerc's tail and has now got DRS up to turn 3. Will Sainz go for an overtake? He thinks about it. To be honest, if this continues, I think Ferrari have got to tell Leclerc to let Sainz through, because Sainz clearly looks quicker right now. So they can't afford to let Max go, get too far away. He's already 2 seconds clear, as Lance Stroll has just overtaken Nico Hülkenberg for 7th. So good for Stroll there to get back into a better position, as this is Hülkenberg just about holding off Pierre Gasly onto the into the entry of turn 6. That Haas is now starting, I think, to cook its tyres. That's Max Verstappen. Now, really 2.5 seconds clear of Charles Leclerc. And Carlos Sainz still right on Leclerc's tail. So, really, you have to say Sainz at the minute is much quicker. And I think Ferrari might have to tell Leclerc to get out the way. Because they don't want to let Max get too far away. As Zhou Guanyu has pitted. So the first proper pit stop comes from Zhou Guanyu. And he now drops down to 20th as Russell and Perez there side by side through turn 3. And Perez, did he get a good enough exit? He did, but I'm not sure if he'll get an overtake done. No, he's way too far back. Right, so Zhou is down to 20th and Zhou is on the hard tyre. They've actually updated it now. Magnussen is on the hard tyre, it's not on the medium. They just displayed it incorrectly there. As here's a replay of Stroll and Hülkenberg. And Hülkenberg actually going off there. That's why he was under pressure then from Gasly. I didn't quite see if Stroll pushed him off or not. So I can't really say if, Lance should be penalised or anything. But Carlos Sainz still very closely following Leclerc, and still Lando Norris only 6 to 7 tenths of a second behind Hamilton. So that McLaren, guys, to our delight, genuinely has the pace to fight. As Perez up the inside of Russell into turn 3. That's very ambitious and a brilliant move, but Russell comes back at Perez. Will he get the move back into turn 4? They're side by side. Both have got DRS. But Perez has the vital inside line. And he's up to 11th place. Critical for Sergio Perez because Russell could have held him up for quite a while if he didn't get that move done. As Max Verstappen is now on almost the beginning of lap 11. 3 seconds clear of Charles Leclerc. So Max doing exactly what he needs to do. And still Carlos Sainz tucked right up behind Charles Leclerc. As Lando Norris also tucked right up behind the Mercedes. How great is it to see McLaren back in a position like this in the top 5, and they are genuinely quick enough to fight with teams like Mercedes. Exactly what you want to see. As Carlos Sainz, just a notification there, he's had a time deleted for track limits. McLaren telling Lando every time Hamilton goes off, please report it. Lando responding saying, I mean, he's going off every lap everywhere. As Pierre Gasly overtakes Nico Hülkenberg for 8th. So that's good for Alpine now. Up into a decent position on lap 11. But yeah, Lando looking very good here. And keeping very nicely with Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari are still, clearly faster than Mercedes, McLaren, and Aston Martin. There's a replay of what Gasly did on Hülkenberg, and that was a very easy overtake. Hülkenberg didn't even defend. He just let Gasly go through, because I think Hülkenberg knows he needs to just look after his tyres. As we're on lap 12 now, out of 71. But despite Ferrari, as now Charles Leclerc almost 4 seconds behind Max, despite them losing quite a bit of time to Red Bull, Ferrari are clearly quicker than Mercedes, McLaren, and Aston Martin. As Nico Hülkenberg pits, not really surprised given he was starting to lose positions, and he is now down to, as Sergio Perez passes Alex Albon now, up to what will be P9. Nico Hülkenberg comes out in 19th on the hard compound tyre. So let me just update that. Yeah, Hülkenberg on the hard, Magnussen on the hard, De Vries on the medium, and of course Tsunoda and Bottas are on the hard as we're on lap 13 out of 71. And yeah, Max Verstappen is over 4 seconds clear now of Charles Leclerc. To be honest, even if Ferrari put Sainz ahead of Leclerc, as Leclerc now 4.6 behind the Red Bull driver out front, as Nick De Vries is now pitted for AlphaTauri. Even if they move Sainz ahead of Leclerc, I'm not sure Sainz will actually be quick enough to catch Max Verstappen. I think Ferrari are just genuinely not as quick as Red Bull. They may as well just leave it go, to be honest. As Mercedes telling Hamilton, okay, Lewis, we have now had a black and white flag for track limits at turn 10. And Lewis responding, saying, I can't keep it on the track. The car won't turn. Having to push hard as well, because Lando is right on his tail, and he's been like that ever since the start of the race. So, sorry there, by the way, if the old PC froze again. But, yeah, De Vries is now, as we've got a yellow flag in Sector 1 and Sector 2, and it's Nico Hülkenberg. I didn't quite see what happened for Hülkenberg. They may have just showed it on the screen, but I didn't actually see what happened. He's on the exit of turn 3, is Hülkenberg. I'm not sure if he's broken down or not. If they did show him on screen, then yeah, I wasn't able to get a good enough look to see what had actually happened to him. But yeah, Hülkenberg looks like he's out of this race. That's a shame. So Nico Hülkenberg down to 20th and out of the race. Yeah, didn't get as a virtual safety car deployed. And just as it's deployed, Ferrari missed the chance with both cars to pit. This is now brilliant for Hamilton and Norris because they can both pit if they want. And that will be them gaining half a pit stop's time. And yes, Hamilton and Norris both pit. Hamilton massively locking up on the entry to the pits. And like I said, this is brilliant now for everyone behind the top 3. Because now they can pit and lose way less time pitting than the top 3 would. Unless the virtual safety car stays out long enough for those top 3 to be able to pit still. So, everyone, yeah, Hamilton, Norris, Gasly, Albon, Russell, Ocon, Piastri, Sargent, all coming into the pits. Alonso, Stroll, and Perez have stayed out on lap 15 under the virtual safety car. So, right, let me just update the position. So, Alonso is up to 4th, Stroll is up to 5th, Perez is up to 6th, and then it is Hamilton 7th, Norris 8th, Tsunoda is now 9th, and then it's Bottas in 10th. As the virtual safety car, by the way, still out, and Ferrari tell Carlos Sainz to pit. And Sainz has backed off to enable him to not get held up by Leclerc's pit stop, as Max Verstappen has also pitted. Has he pitted? No, he hasn't. He hasn't pitted. It says on the screen 1 pit stop, but it only says that because they had to go through the pits once under the safety car. So Verstappen stays out as Alonso comes in and Stroll. So both Red Bulls stay out. And we're now back under green flag. So Leclerc, that's brilliant for Ferrari. As, loads of close racing there. Oh, who is it? It's Gasly trying to overtake Magnussen for P10. And he does it. Right, so let me just try and get this order correct. So Verstappen as, big, it's not a dive bomb. It's Bottas defending his position from Gasly. Pushing Gasly a bit too wide in turn 3 and pushing Magnussen past Gasly. And now Magnussen overtakes Bottas into turn 4. And Gasly whistles round the outside of Albon at turn 4. Russell passing Albon at turn 4 as well. Right. Everything's all over the place, so just give me a couple minutes, guys. There's lap 17 out of 71. And yeah, Verstappen and Perez, the only two cars not to pit, or actually Tsunoda, Magnussen and Bottas didn't pit as well under the what do you call it? Under the virtual safety car. I think a couple others outside the top 10 as well. But most interestingly, and most importantly, both Red Bulls not pitting under the safety car as Lando Norris here ahead of Carlos Sainz on track. But Carlos Sainz gets ahead at turn 3 and Lewis Hamilton has been given a 5-second time penalty for track limit violations. And Hamilton currently running in what is a net third place. So, yeah, really all over the place is Hamilton in this race so far. So let me just update what the order is on now lap 18 of 71. So Verstappen leads. Verstappen has not made a proper pit stop yet. Leclerc second. Perez is third. Hamilton is fourth. Sainz is fifth. Lando Norris is sixth. As I think Sainz there just did the fastest lap of the race. And here's a replay of Russell overtaking, overtaking Alex Albon at turn 3. And here's a replay of what happened between Alpine and all the Williams. That was probably is an unsafe release there from Alpine. Not sure who that was for. Looks like it's probably Ocon in the Alpine there. So guys, on the fresher tyres, Charles Leclerc has brought the gap down from 22 seconds to 16.7. So if Max pits right now, Leclerc will take the official lead of the race, even though Max will be on much fresher tyres when he makes his pit stop. Tsunoda has a 5-second penalty as Russell there just as overtaking Kevin Magnussen. And yeah, Tsunoda, track limit violations. That's why he has a penalty. So Sainz is in 5th. Norris is 6th. Alonso 7th. Gasly is in 8th. And then you've got Tsunoda 9th. And Russell 10th. So that's your top 10 right now. Let me just update that we are on lap 19. I promise I will get it all correct eventually once it starts to just settle down a bit. So yeah, it's Russell 10th. Magnussen is 11th. And then it's Albon in 12th. Ocon 13th. And then Bottas 14th. Side by side, Sainz and Hamilton down to turn 4. As Sainz got the move done. Yes, he has. Carlos Sainz on the mediums, Hamilton on the hard tyres. And that is why Carlos is now up to 4th place. So, yeah, Bottas down the order is actually now down to 15th. As Albon there trying to pass Magnussen, but failing to do so. And then you've got Piastri 16th, Sargent, Zhou, De Vries, and obviously Hulkenberg is out of the race. So, the order for now is correct on your screen. Just got to make sure I get the tyres now correct. The tyres-wise, it's Verstappen on the medium, Leclerc on the medium, Perez on the medium, Sainz on the medium, and then Hamilton and Norris are on the hard compound tyres. That's a replay of Sainz. How he passed Lewis Hamilton. And yeah, the Ferrari much clearly quicker than the Mercedes. And Sainz now up to 4th. And pretty soon he'll probably be passing Sergio Perez. And talking of that, here we go. Round the outside he goes, Sainz of Perez at turn 4. He is absolutely on fire today. Is what you call it? Is Carlos Sainz. So quick today and just overtaking people so brilliantly as we've got so many cars side by side coming into turn 4. 4 cars side by side. Albon, Magnussen, Ocon, Stroll. Magnussen has been overtaken by Albon. Has he been overtaken by Ocon? Yes, he has. and nearly overtaken by Stroll, but not quite yet. Right, so Hamilton and Norris are on the hard. Alonso is on the medium, and then everyone else below Alonso is on the hard compound tyre. So let me just update that before I update the positions. So, yeah, hard tyre, clearly the tyre of choice. And there you go, everyone below Alonso on the hard. And let me update that Albon is up to 11th. Ocon is up to 12th. Piastri is up to 15th, head of Bottas. And the rest of the field is as is. And we've still got 50 laps to go. What a race this has been. As Charles Leclerc, having made that pit stop, is now just 14.9 seconds behind Max Verstappen. So if Verstappen pits right now, Max will come out as Sainz, is ahead of Perez now. Need to update that. Sainz. I'm just trying to think, where would Max come out? Max would come out behind both Ferrari drivers if he was to pit now. So this really now becomes a really interesting race. Can Red Bull pull off a good enough strategy to avoid Ferrari winning the race, really, by gaining from that virtual safety car period, as Valtteri Bottas has pitted from 16th place as Hamilton, going around the outside of Sergio Perez into turn 3. Obviously, Perez has not pitted yet, and Perez forcing his way back up the inside and keeping the position. It is critical that Hamilton passes here, because as Magnussen dropping down the field has just lost like 3 positions out of nowhere. And and Tsunoda has dropped down now to P12, so it's now Russell up to 9th. Albon still in the top 10. And then you got Stroll 13th, Piastri 14th, Magnussen 15th, as we're now on lap 23 out of 71. Not even half distance yet, and we've already had a brilliant race. And let me just update that Bottas is now last of all the runners, and he's now on the medium compound tyre as Hamilton getting close to Perez into turn 3, but not close enough. And we'll see whether he can have a go into turn 4. Of course, with Hamilton, as here he comes into turn 4, would he go to the inside? No. I have noticed with Hamilton in the last couple of years, he's not as aggressive as he used to be. But, 10, 15 years ago, he would have sent that down the inside. And Hamilton asking Perez completely off at turn 10, has he got a penalty yet? Obviously, Hamilton, if you want to know, does have a 5-second time penalty for track limit violations. So does Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda there really defending a bit too hard against Albon, and Albon almost having to go off the track there. And here's a replay of Piastri and Magnussen, and Piastri hitting the back of Magnussen. Piastri has just pitted. I wonder if Piastri had to pit for damage. Piastri is now down, I think, to 18th. Yes, he is. Piastri now down to 18th. That's a shame, if that is what happened there. Just a new front wing needed for Oscar on lap 24. As Hamilton still right up behind Perez as Yuki Tsunoda makes his first pit stop. What I was going to say is, because Hamilton has a 5-second penalty, he has to get past Perez as soon as possible, because Lando Norris is now only 1.2 seconds behind him, and Fernando Alonso is only about 6.2 behind Hamilton. So Hamilton's got to get a move on here, as Max Verstappen at the beginning of lap 25 comes in for his first pit stop for hard tyres, and he will come out in 3rd place, I believe. Yep, Leclerc has gone through very far ahead of Max. Here comes Carlos Sainz. Will he come out ahead? Going to be close. But no, Sainz just about takes it. So it is a Ferrari 1-2 on lap 25. Nobody thought that was going to happen. As Esteban Ocon has got a 5-second time penalty for track limit violations. It's like an F1 open lobby. Online lobby, not an open lobby. Online lobby on the F1 game. Oh, so many bloody penalties. This time not for track limit violations. That's for an unsafe release. And that is a fair penalty, sorry. So Max now on the hard compound tyre. And now he's got the fresher tyre. Carlos Sainz's job now is simple. Hold up Verstappen for as long as possible. Because Leclerc is leading Sainz by 6.5 seconds. And if Ferrari can keep ahead of Verstappen for as long as possible, then that'll really help them extend this stint long enough to give themselves a really good chance to maybe win the race, obviously later on. As we're now on lap 26, and Verstappen looking to the inside as Sergio Perez is pitting. I'll let you know where Perez comes out. He should go onto a set of hard tyres. It's coming up to turn 3 now. Surely Verstappen will overtake Sainz. Sainz will defend. And defend hard to the inside. And Max will just simply undercut him and get a brilliant exit. And there is nothing Carlos Sainz can do. He'll get into the slipstream and maybe think about going for a move. But there is nothing he can do. So, Max Verstappen up to second on the hard compound tyre. Let me just update where Sergio Perez has come out, as Perez is now right behind Esteban Ocon. They've both got DRS, and Perez overtakes. He's on the hard tyre. Oh no, he's on the medium tyre actually, Perez. Another set of mediums. Of course, remember, both Red Bulls only have one set of hard tyres available, so Max will have to either... And that's very important actually to remember, as Max Verstappen does the fastest lap, a 108.9. Max Verstappen has only one set of hard tyres for this race. He's currently on them. So either Max will have to finish the race on these tyres or have to pit for a used set of mediums. So that could play a role. And obviously Ferrari really benefiting from the virtual safety car that came out. Right, so Perez is now down in... I'll put 9th place because he's about to overtake Albon for 9th. And there you go. Up the inside into turn 3, and Perez is up to P9. So let me just update. Alonso is on the medium. Gasly is on the hard. And then you've got Perez on the medium. Your top 10 on lap 27. Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton, Norris, Alonso, Gasly, Russell, Perez, Albon. F4 on the top 10 has pitted at least once. As we're now on lap 28. And Lando Norris still within a second of Lewis Hamilton. So that McLaren ain't going anywhere. And all Lando really has to do is just stick, really within a second of Hamilton because of that penalty that Lewis does have. Right, let me update also, though, that, Tsunoda and Magnussen have dropped down the field. So it's now Ocon 11th. Stroll is 12th. Logan Sargent is up to 13th place. Is Hamilton there? Did he go wide in turn 3? I think he might have. And now Lando getting a brilliant run on Hamilton down to turn 4. These two were like this 2 years ago and blasts past the Mercedes. Lando Norris is up to 4th. And I am proud to say that McLaren are back, because that was done not because Hamilton has a car problem or front wing damage or whatever. That was done because Lando Norris in that McLaren is genuinely quicker this weekend in all conditions. Brilliant to see Lando up to 4th. And remember, of course, McLaren do have an extra set of hard tyres available to them compared to Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull. So that hard tyre proves well for the rest of the race. McLaren looking good. As here's a replay of... I don't know what we're looking at there. Zhou Guan Yu just driving through turn 3. I have no idea what that was about. Max Verstappen, by the way, is not gaining on... Carlos Sainz penalty. Penalty for Carlos Sainz. 5-second penalty. It is truly like an online lobby. Track limit violation. So Carlos Sainz now has a penalty. Also, all Lando has to do is just make sure he doesn't get a penalty and get within 5 seconds of Sainz. And Lando will be on the podium. Who would have thought? But, right, let me just complete the rest of the order. So Zhou is in 14th. And then we've got, as Perez now, right on the back of Russell. That's the next victim for Perez to deal with. Magnussen is 15th. And then you've got De Vries in 16th. Tsunoda 17th. Bottas 18th. And Piastri in 19th on lap 30. Out of 71. What I was going to say was, Max is not catching Leclerc as quickly as I expected. He's catching him pretty quickly, but not anywhere near as quick as I would have expected. As Tsunoda is under investigation, or it's been noted that he failed to serve his penalty correctly, so that's going to be another penalty for Tsunoda. That's a shame. He's destroyed his race there. As Perez now closely following the Mercedes. Russell doesn't defend, and Perez is up to 8th place. So there you go. Perez up to 8th. And he is still, given the penalties that are being dished out, he's still a contender out there. Don't count out Sergio Perez just yet. But just want to update who is on what tyre. Everyone outside of the top 10 on the hard, except for Bottas on the medium still. But there you go. On lap, I think now 31 out of 71. So still 40 laps to go in what is a exhilarating Austrian Grand Prix. This has definitely been the best race of the season so far. As that's a replay of Sainz violating the track limits in the penultimate corner. And he clearly did it. As Max is now 2.8 behind Leclerc. So he's going to overtake Leclerc pretty soon. According to the AWS graphic on the TV broadcast, it'll be 3 laps when he can have a go. But I know the drivers have complained about the track limit stuff. But as far as I'm concerned, and other people have said it on Twitter, and it is absolutely true, these are the best drivers in the world. If they can't stick within the track limits enough times, that's their own fault. It's literally just the rules. It's not a hard thing for these drivers to do. As McLaren telling Lando, I know you'll hate me, but we must be within track limits every lap. There's so much going on here. And that's a very smart message by McLaren, because they know there is probably a bit more to gain still from this race if they keep their nose clean. As Lando Norris is currently 6.5 seconds behind Carlos Sainz. Lewis Hamilton is still within a second of Lando, but he's not really close enough to really think about going for a move, as Lando runs very wide through turn 3. But he does that on purpose, I notice, Lando, because he likes to get a better exit from that corner, which really is what matters most from turn 3. All about the exit. That's now Verstappen under 2 seconds behind the Monegasque. And it's just like, it literally is just like last year. Leclerc versus Verstappen for the win. And at the minute, I'm not sure necessarily who is the favourite to win, because Gasly, black and white flag for him. Track limit violations. Got to be careful, Gasly. He is running in 7th place. I have to say, as Albon now, track limit violation. And he has now been given a black and white flag as well. Everybody getting black and white flagged. The drivers are just pushing too hard in those final 2 corners and really throwing away what could be a good result, as Verstappen is nearly within a second now of Leclerc. Yeah, it's still, at the minute, it's too hard to say who is the favourite to win yet, because Max, I mean, you would assume will pit again in this race. Leclerc definitely will pit again. I mean, he has to pit again because he started on the medium, went onto another set of medium, so he has to go onto another set of tyres, which isn't the medium compound, of course. So he will have to pit again. But Max does not have to pit again, and does not have any new sets of medium tyres or any new sets of... Does Max have new sets of mediums? He might have a new set of mediums, but he doesn't have any new set of hard tyres, and the hard tyre, clearly, is the tyre to be on right now. So it's very hard to say right now who is genuinely the favourite. You'd probably still have to give it to Verstappen because he's got the faster car, but it might still come back towards Ferrari. By the way, I can see we're on 85 likes. Thank you guys so much for obviously tuning in, watching along. If you haven't hit the like button yet, make sure to do so. Let's try and get up to 100 likes if we can in the next 10 laps or so. As here comes Verstappen on Leclerc. Leclerc defends to the inside and keeps Max behind through turn 4. And that is good. Just needs to keep Max... Just needs to keep Max, if I can fucking speak English, behind long enough. One, to burn up his tyres a bit, but also to continue the advantage that Ferrari gained from pitting under the virtual safety car, as Pierre Gasly has just been overtaken by Sergio Perez. So Perez up to 7th, and Perez now 8.8 seconds behind Alonso. Alonso, by the way, 3.7 seconds behind Hamilton. So Alonso, at the minute, would finish ahead of Hamilton because of Hamilton's penalty. As we're on lap 35, pretty much halfway through this brilliant Austrian Grand Prix. And here we go. An overtake for the lead, is it? Max Verstappen. Yep, Leclerc doesn't even defend and goes up the inside. Verstappen and takes the position. But will Leclerc come back on the exit, possibly with DRS? Nope. Max has the DRS. So Max Verstappen back into the lead, but can he keep it until the end? There is still lots of laps to go and plenty of... plenty of time left for Ferrari to turn this round. And so the Dutch fans loving that. And I just want to say also, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because we do qualifying and race watch-alongs for every Grand Prix, and we will be doing the same for the British Grand Prix next weekend at one of the best racetracks in the world, of course, Silverstone. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. And again, make sure to smash that like button if you haven't already and try and get us over to 100 likes if we can. That would be great. Replay of Magnussen being pushed into the gravel by... Looks like... Is that De Vries? I'm not sure if it is De Vries. I don't know. But if it is, that's a continuation of their battle in Canada where they both... took each other off, really, with quite silly moves on each other. As 5-second penalty for Alex Albon for track limit violation. So Albon running in P10, definitely not now heading for a points finish. That is a shame. Right, so yeah, Magnussen is now down to 19th. I don't think Magnussen is actually pitted properly, or maybe he has, but he hasn't really done it anywhere near in sync with the others. But it's a shame about Hulkenberg, because he wasn't looking that bad before his pit stop. As we're now on lap 37, black and white flag for Lance Stroll. Everyone is going to end up with a penalty at this point. And this is because the drivers just simply refuse to what do you call it? They simply refuse to obey the track limits. As Verstappen now 2.6 clear of Charles Leclerc. As Lance Stroll in 12th place is pitting. Aston Martin do have another set of hard tyres for Stroll, so that is what will be going on, I presume, as Stroll pits. But what should be the final time, and this is a very early pit stop. We're only just past the halfway point of this race. As here comes Stroll. And, yeah, new set of hard tyres. And let's see where he comes out. Got to say, Logan Sargent is having a very good race. He's up to 12th place now. And, yeah, he's looking very good, Sargent. as Lance Stroll comes out in 15th place. So let me just update that. There you go. As we're now on lap 38 of 71. And Verstappen now 3.5 seconds clear of Leclerc. Lando Norris is 8.5 seconds behind Sainz. Lewis Hamilton is a 2.5 behind Norris. But catching Hamilton is his best friend, Fernando Alonso. Now just 2.5 seconds behind on a slightly fresher and softer compound. The medium compound of tyre. And yeah, with Hamilton's penalty, Alonso licking his lips at a couple extra points possibly. And Sergio Perez also catching. Perez was 8.8 behind Alonso when Perez passed Gasly. He's now 4.3 behind. So Hamilton, at this point, could drop down to 7th place. Mercedes are having a very bad race, I have to say, as Nick de Vries has pitted and will come out in 18th place, will it be? Yes, it will. And De Vries is now on the medium tyre. As we're now on lap 39 out of 71. And yeah, let me just update. So De Vries on the medium. And then Bottas on the medium. Piastri obviously on the hard. Shame about Piastri. What happened with him? Bit of a clumsy error. And it's cost him. As Nick de Vries has now been given a penalty. 5-second penalty for forcing another driver off the track. And with that incident with the Magnussen, I'd have to agree. Magnussen was side by side with him and he just didn't give him any room. Just forced him off. And that was definitely afters what happened in Canada. As we're on lap 40 now. Out of 71. Zhou Guan Yu is now pitted from from position 13. As we've got 32 officially laps to go in this race. So where does Zhou come out? He comes out in 17th place. So, and he's on the hard tyre. Is Zhou. Let me just update the tyres down there. Obviously, Piastri on the hard. Bottas on the medium. Alfa Romeo having a pretty bad weekend. As is a replay of De Vries and Magnussen at turn 4. And I think that was what happened before that incident. And here's a replay of Norris at turn 3. And, very bad understeer through turn 3. And just understeered off the track. Came back on nicely enough, though. So he hasn't lost a ton of time, but he's now only a second ahead of Hamilton. And Hamilton now only 1.5 seconds clear of Alonso, who is only 1.5 seconds ahead of Perez. And we now got a 4-way fight for 4th place. Now it's going to get tasty. As Max Verstappen out front, by the way, 7.5 seconds clear of Charles Leclerc. Ferrari have to pit again with both cars. Again, Max doesn't have to pit again. So, at the minute, what Max is doing is absolutely the right thing. He's building a gap in case he doesn't pit again. Because then, if Ferrari, or when Ferrari do pit again, they won't be able to catch him in time. Drivers yet to serve 5-second time penalties. They've just put on the screen. Sainz, Hamilton, Ocon, Albon, and De Vries. Talking of Ocon, he's just served, I think, that penalty. Possibly. I don't think we quite saw him serve, but he also had a low pit stop. So, as Lando Norris has been told to pit, Valtteri Bottas pits as well, and here comes Norris. For another set, it should be, of hard compound tyres on lap 42. And Perez now right up the gearbox of Alonso as Gasly under investigation for track limits. I wonder if Gasly has violated the track limits so many times they might even be even worse penalty. As Perez up the inside of Alonso. Alonso doesn't even defend it because the Red Bull is just simply too quick. So Perez is up to 6th now. Let me just update that Alonso is also on the medium. And I just want to update as well, as Alex Albon pits, remember he has to serve that 5-second penalty as well. So here we go. The second pit stop phase has properly begun. So Lando Norris has come out in 8th place as Pierre Gasly has been given a 5-second penalty for track limit violations as Lewis Hamilton now pits and he will now serve his penalty. So Sergio Perez is now up to 4th. And Alonso is now 5th. And then Norris soon will go up to 6th. Or not to 6th place, to 7th place. Yep, they're now waiting 5 seconds, Mercedes. Tyres on. And away they go. And I think the tyres they're on is a set of mediums. And as Norris does come out ahead of Hamilton. As George Russell has pitted as well. So Logan Sargent, who has only pitted once, is now up to 9th place. Having a good race, like I said, is Logan. And he's given himself good fresh tyres now for the end of the race. So watch out for Logan. As I think Russell is about to overtake him actually for 9th. And actually, did he just overtake him? I think he tried to. But, and yeah, there you go. He's now overtaken him. As we're on board with Lando Norris, so I think is, in a minute, going to overtake Pierre Gasly. So Sargent is down to P10. Stroll is up to 11th. Ocon is in 12th. Is a replay of Russell passing Sargent at turn 3. And yeah, simple move. Obviously, Logan is just trying to do his stint, and he's doing a really good stint at the minute. Albon is actually in 12th place, so despite serving that penalty, remains in it comes out in P12 ahead of Ocon. As here comes Lando Norris up to 6th place, now ahead of Pierre Gasly. As Logan Sargent now pits. So Stroll will be up to 10th. Albon up to 11th. And then it'll be Ocon. Oh, no, not Ocon. Actually, no, it will be Ocon up to 12th because Tsunoda now pits as well. So I'll let you know where it all filters out. As here's a replay of Bottas diving down the inside of Alonso at turn 3. Bottas was a lap down. That's him unlapping himself on fresher tyres. And then Alonso tries to get back past him, and Bottas, yeah, keeps the position. As Alonso now pits. So Alonso, clearly his tyres had gone. Got for another set of medium tyres. I don't understand why. He does have another set of hard tyres. Yeah, I mean, the mediums are working well to a certain degree, but they're not working that well. I'm surprised they've gone for another set of mediums, but he does now have a couple lap fresher tyres compared to Lewis Hamilton, who has served, of course, that penalty now. So we'll see how that plays out. As Lando Norris now up to 5th. As Pierre Gasly now exits the pits. He has, I think, served his penalty now. As here comes, on lap 46, not Charles Leclerc. It is Carlos Sainz for his final pit stop. And obviously, he's serving his 5-second penalty. And now goes on to a set of hard tyres. So Sainz, of course, Ferrari only have one set of new hard tyres for the race. So that's what Leclerc will be going on to in a minute. As Sainz comes out neck and neck and actually behind Lando Norris, but does have quite a bit fresher tyres than Lando Norris. So Perez is third, Norris is fourth, Sainz is fifth. And Alonso, because Hamilton wasted 5 seconds serving his penalty, Alonso has rejoined ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So Alonso has jumped Hamilton. That is critical for his race. As Sainz now tries to go round the outside of Norris at turn 4. And Lando kicks his foot in it, but I think Sainz has the superior grip. And he does. And he takes back 4th place. Great racing between the two ex-teammates. I'm sure they enjoyed it. And Carlos now up to P4 on lap 47. Max Verstappen, by the way, now 13.5 seconds clear. I think it's pretty safe to say now that Max Verstappen has won this race. Because once Leclerc pits, he's not going to gain the time back to actually beat Max. Yeah, Verstappen, way too quick out front in the Red Bull. Red Bull, quite frankly, too quick. So, let me just get the order correct. So, it's, yeah, Alonso is now 6th. Ahead of Hamilton in 7th. And then, as Lando Norris here, now trying to come back at Carlos Sainz. Thinks about it into turn 3. Really doesn't want to be burning his tyres up too much because that Ferrari has clearly been quicker than the McLaren today. And Lando heading for a net 4th or 5th in this race. So really just needs to keep it together and bring it home. As Charles Leclerc now pits on lap 48 for his final pit stop. And he will come out in 3rd place. That was a very good pit stop. 2.5 seconds. And Sergio Perez will now go up to 2nd. But Perez has to pit again because he hasn't used a different set of tyres yet. So Leclerc has essentially guaranteed himself 2nd place as black and white flag there for Kevin Magnussen. Track limit violations. Let me just get the positions correct a minute. Russell is currently in 8th place. Stroll is in 9th. With Gasly in P10. And then you've got Albon, Ocon, Sargent. So Sargent, after all those pit stops, has come out with a bit fresher tyres as well in 13th place. So Logan is looking pretty good here. So yeah, Logan 13th. And then Zhou is 14th. Hold on, let me just... There you go. So Zhou 14th. De Vries is 15th. And then you've got Magnussen, Bottas, Tsunoda and Piastri rounding up the field. And your only retirement, of course, so far, Nico Hülkenberg, who started this race in 8th. As we're now on lap 49. As Lando Norris still remaining within a second of Carlos Sainz. He's not letting him get away. And actually just did the fastest lap of the race. Brilliant to see. And yeah. I know there were some people doubting me as to me thinking McLaren were so much better. And maybe thinking I was overrating how much they improved. I think after this race, you have to definitely admit that McLaren have massively improved. Because we have not seen this level of performance from them, really, since 2021. As Max Verstappen now pits for the final time, he's got enough of a gap to pit and still maintain the lead ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez. And he does. And comes out on another set of hard tyres, a used... Was it? No, it's a medium set of tyres, sorry. Not hard tyres. So Max will finish the race on the mediums and will win the race by a country mile. Perez is 2nd, still has to pit. Leclerc 3rd. Sainz 4th on the hard. Norris 4th on the hard. Alonso 6th on the medium. Hamilton 7th on the medium. Russell 8th on the medium. And then you've got Stroll 9th on the hard. Gasly 10th on the medium. Gasly's actually had pretty decent pace in this race. If he just didn't have that penalty, he'd be in a pretty decent position. And as there's a replay of an AlphaTauri going off the track. Probably Demid out there trying to find where the grip is still on a Sunday. As Sergio Perez has been told to pit, and he does. Oh no, that was Verstappen. I thought that was Perez coming into the pit lane. No, that's Verstappen. So yeah, Perez will come in just a moment. As we are now on lap 51. Still got about 20 laps to go. Yeah, what a race this has been. As yeah, Perez pits for a set of hard tyres. And he's gone a couple laps longer, I think, with that stint than Leclerc went. So, and Perez now comes out in 5th place. So the question now is, can Sergio Perez finish on the podium? I think he can, but with Norris still within a second of Sainz and still has the DRS, not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. So, right, so hard tyres, obviously, for Max. Oh, no, medium tyres, sorry, for Max. And then Leclerc on the hard. Let me update that Perez is now down to 5th place. And Perez is now on the only set of hard tyres he has. As Max Verstappen does the new fastest lap of 108.1. That's only, I think, 3.8 seconds slower than pole position. A brilliant pace there from Mad Max out front. Remember though, guys, of course, when we get to the end of the race, I will still be around to do the reaction to this Austrian Grand Prix. So make sure to stick around for that. And get ready to let me know who you think driver of the day is for today's Austrian Grand Prix. As Lando Norris still closely following Sainz. And if that Ferrari starts to drop off with its tyres, you never know. Lando could maybe nick his way up to 3rd. But still, Sergio Perez closely behind. Only 3.5 seconds behind. And he is, Perez, without a doubt, the favourite to finish in 3rd place. I don't think Perez will finish in 2nd. Because Leclerc, I think, is a bit too far ahead of Perez. Perez is currently, what, about 11.5 seconds behind Leclerc. So he'd have to gain like 0.7 a lap on Leclerc per lap to take 2nd. So it's not impossible, but just not, not very likely. As Perez now does the fastest lap, a 108.1, slightly quicker than Max's fastest lap, as he now begins lap 53. The best thing, though, for Lando to defend against Perez is him having the DRS from the back of Sainz, because it will mean Perez will then gain less down the straights on the McLaren. We know the Red Bull is still quite a bit quicker than the McLaren in a straight line. But Lando Norris, who thought... I mean, I thought this upgrade would definitely improve their car, as Piastri, depressingly, has to let his teammate lap him. That is, yeah, definitely depressing. I mean, really, that's because of the damage he suffered earlier in the race, and also because he's running the older car, but still depressing nonetheless. Yeah, we thought, realistically, McLaren would be quite a bit better, but I don't think we thought they'd be, nearly 15 laps to go fighting for podium at the Austrian Grand Prix. I don't think anyone thought that was possible. So, as Yuki Tsunoda has just been given another 5-second penalty, I think, for failing to serve a penalty correctly. Yeah, the main fight is this. The fight for 3rd between Sainz, Norris, and Perez. And there is quite a bit of traffic ahead. So this is not going to be easy for Sainz, and he's got to make sure he aggressively chops his way through the traffic, because if he doesn't, that gives Lando a chance to get a good run on him out of a corner, into a corner, or whatever. When you lap traffic, you've got to be aggressive. You've got to lap them as if you're actually overtaking them for position. Because if you just wait behind them and just wait for them to get out of the way, you'll lose time. And it definitely is an art. Lapping traffic. Definitely used to be an art back in the day when there were no blue flags. As Lando still has the DRS. Sainz, though, has it now as well from the back of Tsunoda. So that might just help Sainz now pull out of, or just pull over a second ahead of Norris and break Norris's heart, quite frankly. As Sainz now goes up the inside of Tsunoda into turn 3 and laps him, and Lando now laps him as well. Red Bull telling Perez, stay on the track limits. We can't afford a penalty here. Entry turn 10, exit turn 10 are the main concern for track limits. As Lance Stroll is pitting, that is surprising. Has he got a problem, or is he going for a super aggressive final stint? He's going to go aggressive. Going to finish up on a set of mediums. So we will see what happens with Stroll. Was running in 9th place. Got to say, Stroll has had a very poor race after starting in 6th. Given that Alonso, who he outqualified, is in 6th. As Stroll comes out right behind Esteban Ocon in 12th place. So Stroll now down to... Oh, no, he's now up to 11th. So he's passed Ocon. So Stroll up into P11. So he's not lost that many positions then, thankfully. Oh, no. Not what I meant to do. Need to scroll up a bit. Just wanted to update that Gasly's on the medium. Sergio Perez there. I just missed it, how it built up. But Perez down the inside of Norris at turn 4 on now lap 57. And Perez is up to 4th. And there's nothing Sainz can do, I'm afraid, now to stop Perez getting on the podium. But, yeah. Stroll now on the medium compound in P11. As Perez is up to 4th on lap 57 out of 71. So we've only got about 15 laps to go now. And Perez already just immediately on the tail of Sainz. And if Perez can pass Sainz on this lap, he's only 9 seconds behind Leclerc. He might catch Leclerc before the end and take second and complete Red Bull's first 1-2 since Miami. As Sainz now defends hard to the inside into turn 4. Perez doesn't have enough momentum to go for a move around the outside, but can he get good enough traction? Maybe he does. But I don't think a good enough run he has to move or to make a move into turn 6. So, but it's an inevitable overtake. Perez is going to overtake Carlos Sainz. There is zero doubt about that. As Perez complaining that Sainz is moving under braking. No, he is absolutely not moving under braking. I don't know what Perez is looking at, to be honest. As Perez, good exit from turn 1. And surely Carlos can't defend for much longer. As up to turn 3 they come. Sainz defends to the inside. Perez takes the outside. Just needs to get a better exit. And he's got the move done. And he does get the better exit on the fresher tyres. They've both got DRS though, importantly. Because Sainz, they're just lapping the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. So Sainz stays ahead. That is so important. That's sometimes you can use the lap traffic to your advantage that way. Try and keep people at bay. As they're just showing on the screen, FOM, the gaps throughout the entire field. And Alex Albon in P10 is the highest placed driver to be lapped. Gasly probably will be lapped before the end of the race. So Max this won't obviously lap the two Mercedes, Alonso, Norris, Perez, Sainz and Leclerc. But Max is pretty much now 20 seconds clear of Leclerc. Once again, brutal domination by Max Verstappen as Perez takes to the inside. Oh, they got very close there. I thought they touched wheels possibly there. Very aggressive wheel-to-wheel racing there, but Perez takes the position back, but Carlos Sainz vitally has the DRS and takes it back. Oh no, Perez forces his way out the inside. Sainz left him a bit too much room as Perez now has the outside line. Will he go round the outside? He's done it before, but he won't do it today. I think he actually did it to Carlos Sainz here 3 years ago for Racing Point. Went round the outside there of turn 6. Was a brilliant move, but yeah, wasn't that confident to try it today. As we're now on lap 60. And Perez really has blown his chance of finishing in second because he's just spent way too many laps now behind Carlos Sainz. As black and white flag for Logan Sargent for track limits. As Logan actually is only 2.7 seconds behind Ocon. So hopefully Logan doesn't get a penalty because he could beat Ocon here to 12th place as Perez once again takes the outside line for turn 3. And do you know what Sainz is doing, which is really smart? He's letting Perez get his car ahead into the DRS detection point, and then Sainz has DRS then down the following straight, and Perez can't do anything about it. Very smart driving, and Perez needs to try and adjust accordingly if he can. As Sainz on the exit of turn 4 into turn 5 and 6 stays ahead. Remember, Lando Norris is not too far behind this pair, so if they do collide, Lando would gain massively, of course, because he's only 1.2 seconds behind in 5th place. As these two now begin another lap. Lap 61 out of 71. As Perez, again, closing in. Currently winning the Driver of the Day vote is Lando Norris. I'm not surprised, to be honest. And to be honest, at the minute, I'd probably go for Norris as my Driver of the Day, as here comes Perez again. And I think he was behind in the detection point this time, so I think Perez will now get the DRS, and he does. Can't outsmart Perez for too long. Sainz as Perez flies round the outside and takes 3rd place. He runs wide though, and Sainz comes back, but not enough. And Perez is up to 3rd. That was a really good racing though, really smart from Sainz in the way he was driving there, letting Perez go ahead on the detection point into turn 3 so Sainz could get the DRS to protect himself. But now there is nothing he can do because Perez remained obviously behind on the detection point and he got the DRS and passed him pretty easily. So Perez up to 3rd, and really it should finish the podium in that order: Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, because Perez is now 13 seconds behind Leclerc. He's going to have to catch Leclerc at 1.5 seconds a lap if he's going to finish in 2nd, which I don't think realistically is possible. But, yeah, the field now settling down. Lance Stroll, by the way, is just over 1 second behind Albon. And, of course, Stroll has pitted for a 3rd time. So I'll keep you updated as to what happens in that battle. And not going to feel great for Albon, but I think he's about to be robbed of that final point. Which is a shame, because Albon definitely driving better than Stroll in this race, but Stroll has the faster car and the fresher tyres. As, yeah, here is Stroll on board following Albon. The only thing Albon can do is pray that his monstrous straight line speed keeps him just about ahead enough to hold on for a point, as Ocon has got another black and white flag for track limits. Pretty sure Ocon had a penalty for track limit violations. Sainz saying on the radio, stewards should have had a look at that. he was intimidating me a lot. I didn't see anything wrong with what happened there. And it's quite weird, actually, for Sainz to publicly admit that he was intimidating him a lot. Not something you hear quite often. As Stroll now a bit closer to Albon as they begin lap, well, for them, lap 63, but it is officially lap 64, as Stroll and Albon are both a lap down. Stroll, will he send it? No. All Albon has to do, the best chance for him to keep this position is just ensure, with his own driving, that he gets the best exit possible from the slow corners, because he has such a great straight line speed that will give him the best chance to protect himself. But Stroll into turn 4, flies around the outside, and nothing Albon can do about it. Stroll has way too much grip, and he's up to P10. Albon did the best he could, but Stroll just in a faster car with faster tyres. Right, so let me just update that Stroll obviously is on the medium, and then you've got Albon on the hard. Great race though for Albon. He's been consistently quick throughout the entire race, and he's in 11th place. He's miles ahead of Esteban Ocon. So yeah, very good race for Albon. He can be very proud of his effort. As what's going on here? Racing towards the rear of the field. Magnussen, Bottas, Tsunoda and Piastri all racing not to be last in this Austrian Grand Prix. As Max Verstappen has now extended his lead, by the way, up to nearly 23 seconds. And the car behind this pack, I think, is Lewis Hamilton, who will be cursing probably behind that helmet. He's going to have to lap 4 cars that probably don't care that he wants to lap them. All they care about is overtaking. As Piastri looks like he's getting out of the way. Here comes Bottas, though, up the inside into turn 3. And Magnussen doesn't even bother defending. Is it because he wants to attack harder into turn 4? We'll find out, as he's got the DRS now on lap 66, as Logan Sargent unfortunately gets a penalty, as Magnussen does go round the outside of Bottas at turn 4. Does he keep the position? Yes, he does. Brilliant driving for Magnussen. Bottas, they're going to go around the outside, but Bottas has to back out. So Magnussen keeps it. But yes, Sargent, at the minute, if he was to drop down 5 seconds, he would drop to 14th place. So that is a shame. But still, much better race and much more encouraging from Logan Sargent. What we want to see, as Hamilton has now lapped Piastri and Tsunoda, and he's about to lap Magnussen or Bottas, and then Magnussen, obviously Bottas, his ex-teammate. I have to say, one point I do want to make before the race, not before the race, before the race ends. Obviously, I'll talk about this in more detail in the race reaction, but Mercedes have been absolutely terrible today. They're 7th and 8th. Nowhere near the pace of Red Bull or Ferrari or even McLaren. Lando Norris is currently he's nearly 12 seconds clear of Hamilton. And yeah, it is track limit violation. Yeah, Mercedes have been horrendous this weekend. Really hope they've not taken a step back. Or maybe it's just this track, really just doesn't suit their car. As Lando just extended the track limit there. Has he been given a black and white flag for it? I'm sure we'll find out soon. He doesn't want to be running that risk. As Bottas back up the inside of Magnussen into turn 3, and Tsunoda right there as well. They're probably all going to end up side by side into turn 4. That's when on lap 68. As Magnussen and Tsunoda side by side, and Tsunoda gets up to 17th place. Obviously, Tsunoda's had 2 5-second penalties today. So, yeah, he's had a really horrendous race out there. So, obviously, Tsunoda on the medium. Magnussen on the hard compound tyre. Tsunoda, though, not getting away from Magnussen, so they're probably still going to be right at it in these last couple laps or so. I will say as well, Aston Martin, just not delivering really good enough pace. But the thing is with Aston Martin is, again, we knew this track was not going to suit their car that well. And throughout the weekend, it's proven to be that way. With Mercedes, they looked good in practice 1, had a decent qualifying, and then here in the race have just been really underwhelming and have been, well, the 5th best team. When was the last time Mercedes had the 5th best car in a race? Probably Monaco, you could probably say. And before that, probably you'd have to go back to... I don't even know when you'd go back to. Probably the start of 2022 or something. Yeah, horrendous race for Mercedes. I mean, they're still going to outscore Aston Martin in this race, as Max Verstappen is being told to pit. As a Red Bull mechanic there is having to push some of the FIA gear out of the way because Max is going to pit. Presumably for a fastest lap. Which, I mean, Perez has the fastest lap at the minute, but we all know Red Bull is Team Max. So, yeah, Verstappen pits for a set of soft tyres and we'll go for the fastest lap. We're now on lap 70, the penultimate lap of what's been a... Sorry, if my PC just froze there. It froze for me. Yeah, the penultimate lap of what has been such a fun race. This has definitely been the best race of the season. Zero doubt about that. Been really exciting. You know, strategy's been very interesting. Lots of different, mix of different cars. And now that McLaren have improved so much, now they are up in that fight with Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari to a degree as well. And McLaren are absolutely, as of now, a front-running Formula 1 team. There is zero doubt about that because they've not only been really quick today, they've been clearly faster than Aston Martin and Mercedes in the race today. As for Verstappen, yeah, on the soft compound tyre. As Charles Leclerc has now decided to give it everything to catch Verstappen as they now begin the final lap. But I don't think Max, unless he has a problem, going to lose the lead on this final lap. As we begin the final lap here at the Red Bull Ring. And Verstappen, presumably, will get the fastest lap and win the Austrian Grand Prix. He has won this race 4 times previously. Not all of them were called the Austrian Grand Prix. One of them was the Styrian Grand Prix in 2021. But he has won here 4 times previously in Formula 1. And this will be his 5th win at the Red Bull Ring. And he's only 25 years old. A terrifying thought. As Verstappen, through the final few corners, the Dutch crowd fire off their flares and wave their flags to salute the best driver, without doubt, on the planet. As Max Verstappen flies through the final 2 corners and wins the Austrian Grand Prix for the 5th time in his career. And it is the fastest lap for Max Verstappen, a 107.0. So it will be the full amount of points for Max this weekend. Charles Leclerc finishes in 2nd. Sergio Perez takes 3rd. Carlos Sainz will finish in 4th place. And then it will be Lando Norris brilliantly in 5th, and he's my driver of the day. And then it'll be Alonso 6th. Hamilton 7th. Russell 8th. Gasly 9th. Stroll 10th, Albon 11th, Ocon 12th, and then it should be Zhou 13th, and then Sargent in 14th, unless Sargent built enough of a gap. I'm not sure, but Sargent's still appearing in 13th. And then, yeah, Zhou in 14th, De Vries 15th, Bottas 16th, Piastri up to 17th, I think because of penalties. And then Tsunoda 18th, Magnussen 19th, and your only retirement here at the Red Bull Ring, Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas. And yes, I think Logan Sargent did build enough of a gap and finishes very well in 13th place, one of his best results of his career. So there you go, guys. That is the Austrian Grand Prix of 2023. And what a race it was. Wasn't really a dull moment the whole way through. But clearly, we hyped up Ferrari. In comparison to Aston Martin and Mercedes, Ferrari have improved a lot. There is zero doubt about that. But in comparison to Red Bull, they haven't got a chance, at least in race terms. When it comes to qualifying, I'm sure Ferrari can still fight with Red Bull very closely. But on pure race pace, Red Bull are too far ahead. As Lando Norris wins the official driver of the day. Let me set up in the chat right now a poll to ask you guys, who is your driver of the day for the 2023 Austrian Grand Prix? And the options will be Max Verstappen, of course. Sergio Perez, I'll put in there because he did come back, we have to remember, from 15th place. Lando Norris, he's my driver of the day. Let me know if you agree or not. And who else would I put for driver of the day? I'll go Alex Albon because, I mean, still to finish 11th in, you know, what is not the greatest car in the world. It's still a good result in that car. So there you go. Who is your driver of the day? For me, it's Lando Norris, but let me know whether you agree or disagree with that that opinion of mine. And out of 10, I'd give that race probably an 8 out of 10. That was a properly good race. As just trying to look on Twitter to see if there's any news I could bring you guys. And can't see anything at the minute. So no new news to bring you guys. And there you go. Right, so let's get into the reaction to the race. And also, like Rook just said, let me know, out of 10, what would you rate this race for? For me, it's an 8 out of 10. It was a really good race. Constant action. Exactly what you want in Formula 1. And this track definitely does not disappoint. So Sergio Perez should feel confident now after this weekend. You know, second in the sprint. Came back from 15th to 3rd. So let's hope Perez going forward will be back to, you know, his best form. Saying that, the next track we're going to, Silverstone, historically speaking, Perez does not have a very good record there at all. He's never really been quick at Silverstone or the Hungaroring after that. So probably Spa is the next track we could see Sergio Perez having a really, really good weekend. But as long as he starts performing better, that's what matters. Rook says, would have been a 9 if a bit more work for the winner. Yeah. If we had like a proper last few laps fight for the win between Max and Leclerc, I would have given it a 9 without doubt. But yeah, that's all the race was really missing, was a proper fight for the win towards the end. And unfortunately, guys, I won't be able to do my usual type of race reaction where I go through a load of pictures of the teams and go team by team, because Twitter earlier this morning was broken and I couldn't get the pictures off Twitter to, get them in my, not my Discord, my OBS. So instead, for this race reaction, what I'm going to do is read out your comments instead. I will quickly give brief thoughts on each team, so don't worry, I will still do that. One thing I do want to do, though, which I did yesterday, and I am going to start doing it from now on, I am going to display on the screen now the gaps between all of the cars and the official timing as it finished. Your winner, Charles Leclerc, finished in the end 5.1 seconds behind, but in reality, it was more like 23, 24 seconds. I think my PC just froze again, but now, I don't think it's my PC, I think it's my OBS actually that keeps freezing. But there you go, should be okay now. It might seem not a very big gap at all, but Verstappen annihilated the rest today. Perez ended up 17 seconds back. Carlos Sainz, 21 seconds back. And then Lando Norris, 26 seconds behind. And then Fernando Alonso, half a minute. He finishes off of the winner. You do have to account, by the way, for the fact that it takes 20 seconds to make a pit stop here at the Red Bull Ring. So in terms of Max's domination today, you just need to add 20 seconds to the gap, from him to everybody obviously below him, to get a true understanding of just how dominant he was today. Lewis Hamilton ended up finishing almost 9 seconds behind Fernando Alonso. Very, very bad race. Personally for him, but really for Mercedes. Mercedes were just not good enough at all in the race today. Russell, I have to say, I was trying to mention it during the race, but I didn't really have time to because there was too much action going on. But Russell was really slow in the race. He was really stuck in the midfield more so than fighting, anywhere near his teammate. And ends up 48 seconds behind Verstappen in the end. And again, remember, that's minus the 20 seconds. Or actually be minus like 17 seconds, actually. Because, of course, or not minus 17, probably not minus 17, what am I talking about? If you knock off 2 seconds that Max would have gained from pitting for that soft tyre, that'll go down to essentially Max losing 18 seconds from that final pit stop. So in the end, George Russell, in reality, was over a minute and almost a lap down in the end on Max Verstappen. Russell has to improve because he has been really poor as of late. Lance Stroll, very poor race. He also needs to buck his ideas up because he has been shocking in the last few races. And then the final car officially not to be lapped is Alex Albon. But if Max had not pitted, then Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll, and Alex Albon would have been lapped. So just shows you again the sheer domination of Verstappen. And then everyone, let me just check. Yeah, everyone below Albon ended up a lap down. So let me just do that. The reason I'm doing this is because it gives you guys who, can't always look at the gaps and all of that after the session to have a good idea as to how it ended and what the gaps were like. So there you go. Let me just do the final one. So yeah, Ocon, Sargent, Joe, De Vries, Bottas, Piastri, Tsunoda, Magnussen, all a lap down, and then yeah, the rest on the same lap. But Gasly, Stroll, and Albon would have been a lap down if Max had not pitted for a set of soft tyres. So yeah, in reality, Red Bull in the race today were pretty much half a second a lap quicker than Ferrari. They were, well, probably about a second a lap quicker than McLaren. And then, yeah, probably about 1 second a lap quicker than Aston Martin as well. Maybe 1.2 seconds, you could say, quicker. They were probably about a second and a half quicker than Mercedes over the course of the race. And then obviously compared to Alpine, they were, yeah, nearly 2 seconds a lap quicker. So let's get into your comments in the chat. I'm not going to stick around for ages, guys, because I have been streaming for nearly 4 hours and it is so bloody hot in my room. I would, obviously like some fresh air. But I will get through some of your comments now. Venster says 7.5 for me. Would have liked to see Alex finish in the points. Yeah, that would have been great. Herman the Tosser says, we all know he's just too good. Should just declare 8 times world champion now. Patrick says 8 out of 10. What's his face says 7/8. Or 7 out of 8. Was a joy. McLaren from race says 8. Prank says, if my thing will scroll up. Yeah, Prank says 9. Blue Flag Alpha 8. Silverback says 9. Yeah, a lot of you think like a 9 out of 10, which is interesting. Astro Stevo saying, cheers, Chazza, and congrats again on the 5-year anniversary. Yeah, thank you, mate, as well. You have been around, I think, pretty much since the start. You're definitely one of the more long-time subscribers. So yeah, massively appreciate you, sticking around and being part of the community. And yeah, if you guys didn't know, today is officially the 5-year birthday of the channel. This channel was created on July 2nd, 2018. And of course, it's July 2nd, 2023. 2018 to me feels about 10 years ago, to be honest, or even longer than that. It's amazing to think. It's only been 5 years. It feels like I've been doing it for a very, very long time. But yeah, massive thank you to you guys. And if you did enjoy my commentary, my play-by-play, as I think it's called in North America, then thank you very much. I really appreciate your praise. Let's have a look at some other comments here. McLaren from Races. Told you, Chazza. Max quali, max sprint quali, max sprint race win, max race win. Yeah. Sometimes, you think, this certain team, they're going to be quicker. They're going to give Max a bit of a tougher weekend, and then he just goes and obliterates everyone and tops every session. And then at that point, what can you do? And actually, Max, I think, has done the absolute, Grand Slam this weekend? He has topped every single session. Practice 1, qualifying, sprint qualifying, sprint race win, and has the fastest lap for the race as well. So he's completely dominated the weekend. And Red Bull's win is not all down to him. Obviously, Red Bull were the quickest team today. There was no doubt about that. It was clear to see. That's why Sergio Perez was so quick through the race today. But Max is on another level right now. There is no doubt about that. Thank you to Heavy Dude 74. Says great commentary, Chazza. No problem. Thank you. And Mickey says, was there an overtake that wasn't with DRS? No, I don't think so. I mean, look, DRS, at some point, I think that there probably will be a point where we can phase it out, DRS, but there are certain tracks where it does come in handy, so it's kind of like a... you know, certain tracks it's too powerful, certain tracks it's not powerful enough. I mean, I think you would still get an exciting race in Austria even without DRS, because you would get longer battles, you know, proper fights rather than just, you know, overtaking simply because of DRS and all of that. But I still think it is a necessary evil for now. Robert Perkle saying Max took the hammer away from Hamilton and beat Perez over the head with it. Astro Steve saying, always love your commentary and watch-alongs here. Yeah, cheers for that. Nota says, glad you're still here, Chaz. Can't remember when I started watching, but I remember when you took a break. Yeah, I think you've been here probably since 2019, probably. If I remember correctly. Yeah. So, good to see you, mate. And let's see what other comments I can find before I finish up the stream. Heavy Dude says, 104 wins and then he will be the best Chazza and 8 World Championships. I mean the best driver right now when I'm talking about Verstappen. I'm not talking about the best driver ever. He's definitely not the best driver ever. There's a long, long time until that is even a possibility. But he is definitely the best driver right now. There is zero doubt about that. And this win is his, you know, 7th win of the first 9 races. And he's won 6 races in a row now, I think he has. As Verstappen. Is it 6 in a row? Hold on. 1, 2, 3. No, 5 in a row, not 6 in a row. But honestly, after this win and how amazing Red Bull were, even if Mercedes bring an upgrade, which I think they are bringing, what do you call it? Yeah, even with a big upgrade for Mercedes, they'll definitely close the gap to Red Bull, but will it be enough for them to actually have a possible chance of beating Max? Definitely, you struggle to see that that's a possibility after this race, but we have to remember Silverstone is a much different track to Austria. It's a high-speed track, but it has a lot of corners that are high speed, so aerodynamics are still very important, and Mercedes and Aston Martin will definitely be better at Silverstone. So even if Red Bull do dominate, I do expect the fight behind them between Ferrari, McLaren. I think they'll absolutely be in there, because remember, it's Lando Norris' home race as well, and he should be super quick in front of the home crowd. Mercedes, Aston Martin. It'll be, yeah, a really great fight, really, for the rest of the podium between those 4 teams. But we'll see. You never know. Maybe Mercedes will be on the pace to fight with Red Bull. We'll have to see. Mickey says, I don't mind DRS, but I feel like we need a system that is more equal like KERS was. Yeah, if we had KERS, that would be better. I mean, obviously, every driver back when we had KERS, they all had an equal amount of KERS. It was all about when you used your KERS. I mean, would it work? enough to give us, plenty of overtaking opportunities and good racing? Maybe. It's something worth maybe trying out in a simulator, seeing whether it would be effective enough. But, yeah. Vince just says, thanks, Chaz and crew. See you all later. Cheers for coming along, mate. I hope you have a good rest of your day. And, I think, on that note, I think I'm going to bring the stream to an end. Thank you guys so much for coming along for this weekend's Austrian Grand Prix. Let me just finish up the poll in the chat, where I asked you guys, who is your driver of the day for the 2023 Austrian Grand Prix? And you guys have voted for Lando Norris with 37% of the vote. Verstappen is second with 29% of the vote. Perez third with 22% of the vote. And Albon fourth with 9% of the vote. Cheers for voting in that poll, if you did. And, what do you call it? Yeah, I do agree. Lando Norris is driver of the day. And really, I know Verstappen has dominated this weekend, but I probably would say Lando is the driver of the weekend because of just how unbelievably quick he's been throughout the entire weekend. So yeah, brilliant to see. And McLaren, obviously much better than they were before. But I think we can confidently say now, as I said during the race, McLaren are back. There is no doubt about that now. And they are now a front-running team. There is no doubt about that. And we'll see how they get on at Silverstone now that both drivers will have the new updated car. Maybe they'll bring a bit extra parts to Silverstone, given that it is their home race. We'll see what happens there with McLaren. They really could be dark horses for a very strong result. But, yeah, thank you guys so much for coming along for the content this weekend. Been great to have you. Of course, I will be covering the British Grand Prix in great detail. And here is the next two pieces of content on the channel. So the next time I'll be live will be on Thursday night at 8 p.m. UK time, of course, for the weekend preview for the 2023 British Grand Prix. And then the following night, live at the same time, on Friday, this Friday coming, of course, for the qualifying preview for the British Grand Prix, where we'll go through the data from Friday practice, look at the upgrades teams have brought, and just look at where teams are at that point of the weekend to determine how qualifying will go and just who's looking good, who isn't. So make sure to join us for those two streams. And of course, I'll be doing a practice 3 and qualifying watch along for the Saturday, a race preview and watch along for the Sunday. We'll be doing an F2 sprint race watch along as well on the Saturday in between practice 3 and qualifying. And I will be doing a stream the day after the British Grand Prix on Monday night, really to cover the talking points from both races. And it would be great, of course, to have you join us for that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming along this weekend. And thank you for the happy birthday messages for the channel. I'm sure, my co-commentator Niblo, of course, who a lot of the time is here and a lot of time has obviously been on the channel and has been really on the channel since the channel began in 2018. I'm sure he would absolutely love to hear what you guys are saying and massively appreciate you guys as well. And he should be back for the Grand Prix at Silverstone next weekend. Yeah, thank you guys for the content this weekend. Before you go, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And as well, before you go, make sure to smash that like button. Because obviously, if you hit the like button, it does help the channel and the algorithm and get, noticed more. So that would be great if you could do that. And as well, if you want to keep up with the content on this channel and receive notifications for my content, make sure to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 or join my Discord server, link below in the description or in the live chat. If you want to join our community, make sure to do so. But guys, that is it for the 9th race of the season, the Austrian Grand Prix. And until my weekend preview for race 10 of the 2023 Formula 1 season, the British Grand Prix, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.